Is diet truly the be-all, end-all when it comes to our health? What about light? And then what about quantum connection? Let's talk about all of that and more in this episode. Welcome back, my friends. My name is Sarah. I am known as Carnivore Yogi. Thank you so much for being here and clicking on this 3-hour-long epic conversation I had with Matt Maruca, the owner of Raw Optics. Now, we do talk about light and all of those things probably in the last hour of this conversation, but the first 2 hours really build upon that quantum connection and that aspect. Now, Matt is someone I have watched for a while now and been a huge fan of his work. He's just a really brilliant guy. And he began by spending a lot of time with Dr. Jack Kruse. So you're gonna hear a lot of that in this conversation, but he's also spent the last year of his life more on a spiritual journey following Dr. Joe Dispenza. So there's a lot of that in the first couple hours of this conversation. Now, Matt and I were just planning on talking for an hour, doing a short podcast, but we really just dove into whatever came up. I didn't have an agenda for this podcast, and so I hope you enjoy it. I hope that you guys enjoy hanging out with us. I felt like I was really buzzing for a couple of days after this conversation. It was really impactful for me and my life. So I'm really, really excited to share it here with you guys. So please do enjoy, leave us a comment, share this out on social media, especially if something in the conversation helps you or you feel like it helps someone that you really love and care about. I do want to thank the sponsors of today's episode. The first one is going to be Optimal Carnivore. Now, I keep this stuff around. I give it to my daughter. I take it. My husband takes it. We don't eat a ton of organ meats, but we all know the benefits of organ meats, especially in the colder months. It's more important for us to really soak in those nutrients, especially since there is less light. So Optimal Carnivore makes it extremely easy for you to get those optimal nutrients that are only found in organ meats with their desiccated organ supplement. They also have a beef liver organ supplement. You can use my code Carnivore, uppercase Y, on Amazon to save 10% on either of those products. And again, we use them daily here in our home. I hope that you guys will enjoy them as well. Make sure you check them out, linked in the information section. The second sponsor I have is Upgraded Formulas. You guys know I am a huge fan of Upgraded Formulas. Their supplements are amazing, but what is, I think, the most amazing is their hair tissue mineral analysis with a consultation. It's one of those things where when we supplement, we don't necessarily want to be just blindly adding things to our body that we don't need, especially when it comes to minerals, the sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. The amount of people that I have worked with that are taking calcium supplements yet have extremely, extremely low magnesium because calcium and magnesium work synergistically is astounding. And so having people do a hair tissue mineral analysis to actually see what's going on in their body with that consultation is life-changing for people. I really, really recommend it. It can help you with your energy levels, your mood, your sleep, your overall performance. So check out Upgraded Formulas. You can use my code YOGI12 to save on anything on their website. And you know I love their magnesium as well. It's my favorite thing in the world. So make sure you check them out. Both of those sponsors linked in the information section. I thank them both greatly. It allows me to start doing things like timestamps for my videos. I'm able to have someone do that for me now because I have these amazing sponsors, and these are products that I personally use. I'm not ever going to recommend something to my audience that I don't personally use. I will also mention before we start that Matt Maruca in this interview, the owner of Raw Optics, I use the Raw Optics glasses, love them, use the yellow day lenses during the day and the red lenses at night. My code Carnivore Yogi will save you 15% off on Raw Optics. But that is the last thing that we really talk about in this conversation. So I've talked long enough in this introduction for a 3-hour conversation. I really do hope you guys enjoy it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming back and tuning in. I am really excited about today's guest. I have Matt Maruca, who has just a really amazing story, and he is the owner and founder of Raw Optics, who you guys know I've been talking about quite a bit and using myself. So thank you, Matt, for being here today.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me.
And are you in Europe right now? Where are you right now?
Yeah, I'm currently in Italy on the island of Sardinia.
Wow, that's amazing. And you have the window open facing you, right?
I do. It's a big window and I see nothing but the ocean. So it's really
Oh my
nice.
gosh, that is
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
it's very, very cool. I'll show you at the end, maybe.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Awesome. Well, I wanted to bring you on because I've been on my channel, my platform, really turning the focus away from food so much and going more into the quantum realm, I guess you could say, talking more about circadian biology, quantum physics, and how that has a powerful impact on our bodies. And besides being the founder of Raw Optics, you are also the author of The Light Diet, which is I've been going through, and it's so much in alignment with what I'm doing. And so I would love to just talk to you about, I know this is a loaded question, but like how you got to where you are now and just like the evolution of things.
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. Well, it's a fun question to answer because I sort of get to create a new story every time I tell it because you know, the past is a really interesting concept. And really, the past, I'm learning, comprises more of what we choose to focus on than what it actually was. And so every time I go back to this, it's sort of an idea, but the best way for me to describe it at this time is that when I was younger, I was always inspired by an idea that we could be really great. And it just filled me with some rapture that even as a kid, it was so delicious and it was all I ever really wanted. And I remember watching movies like Harry Potter and Star Wars and Hercules and just thinking like, I want to be like that person, that character who just goes out and does something great. And I remember being fascinated always by Nelson Mandela and Steve Jobs and not Bill Gates. That's good. I was gonna say Bill Gates just because he was flag. Like, I knew he was successful, but looking at it now, I got to be careful with my jokes. But because I mean, honestly, all jokes aside, like we should love everyone. I think even if we disagree with how they're using their power, like projecting onto them the energy of this person as a tyrannical dictator only makes them more of a tyrannical person or whatever it is that people think that Bill Gates is in our health communities that think has this agenda, which he may or may not. I don't personally don't know, but totally off track. So I had this inspiration from these really, really inspiring, to be honest, people. And I just wanted to do something great. And then time went on, and in my experience of my life, I was having some things that brought me down, I'll call them. So I wasn't feeling great. Like it was various health issues, headaches, allergies, gut issues that were pretty chronic, and almost people use the word debilitating for like serious illnesses. Like these were debilitating for me in their own way. It's like I couldn't function fully and normally without being bothered constantly or in some kind of pain or discomfort. And that was it was that stimulus plus an idea that it didn't have to be that way that led me to look, because if someone just has that, but they accept it, they're not going to look further. But so there had to be that idea of there must be something else out there, which I think was rooted in this general inspiration that life can be amazing that I had shared before. So I started looking, and with no other real intention than just to stop suffering from what I was suffering from at the time and feeling the way I was feeling. And over time, bit by bit, day by day, I started learning about different things that, could maybe help me. I had already gone to Western doctors. I had already gone to a naturopath.
Mm-hmm.
I had tried Western drugs. I had tried natural sort of protocol remedies, and it didn't help fully. And so I just kept looking and looking and looking. And I tried the paleo diet. I was Googling how to heal a damaged gut. And that led to this idea of the paleo diet and healing the gut. And I read the phrase epigenetics on Mark Sisson's blog, The Primal Blueprint, in 2014, I think, early 2014. And I was 14 years old at the time. And I was like, okay, this is something interesting. This idea that our genes aren't our reality, that we can modify our gene expression through certain choices. And of course, he was saying, like many people have continued to say, that it was 80% about diet, 20% about everything else, exercise, supplements, environment. And so I, naturally being a young and impressionable and desperate child, thought, well, if that's what these experts are saying, it must be true. So I thought that I could heal fully by going in a diet. And when it was even furthered, when I went on this kind of paleo diet from eating just more of junk food previously to feeling much better, like in a short span of time, I was like, okay, it's got to be about diet. Like, because I felt so much better. I'm like, it's got to be diet. And when I wasn't feeling 100%, like maybe I was 50% better or something like that, a huge reduction in my symptoms, headaches, allergies over a short period, I thought, like, okay, whatever else in me that doesn't feel right, it's got to be all of something I could solve with diet. And so I basically went and tried to use diet to heal. And I went stricter and stricter. And by like 14, I was reading Gut and Psychology Syndrome by Natasha Campbell McBride.
Oh yeah. The GAPS. Yep.
Famous. Yeah. This is famous now. I was the only person on earth doing the GAPS diet in 2014. I swear to God, like no one else even knew what this was. And I just kept looking and looking and looking, like how to heal the gut. And it was like super strict. Now I don't mean on earth, but no one was talking about it. No.
Yeah. The people in the autism community, we definitely were looking at all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So the paleo diet community was looking into this stuff, but the carnivore, I mean, I don't even remember carnivore existing at 2014.
It didn't really explode, I think, until like 2019, until Dr. Baker and Michaela Peterson had come out. And I think 2019 is really when it like exploded. So
I remember reading zero carb forums in that time. And I was like, these people are insane. It was just my impression at the time. I was like, I would never want to do that. But anyway, that's a totally different conversation. So basically, and that was just my thought at the time. Doesn't mean that's how I think now, of course. But anyway, so that was the journey, like piece by piece by piece. I was trying to go deeper, and what kind of turned things upside down was when the food wasn't working. So no matter how strict, even the GAPS diet, it didn't work for me. Like I didn't heal. I just felt horrible. I felt really bad. I was eating strictly bone broth, well-cooked meat, well-cooked vegetables, barely any vegetables, barely any food, because it was so, to me, displeasing food that I just wasn't that interested in eating. I actually ended up in a sort of which I hadn't ever experienced before, like a bad relationship with food, but I started forcing myself a certain way and thinking I had to do this. And then I also thought, based on, and you're familiar with this, but the idea with all these carnivore and autoimmune and other protocols is if you eat like even a single blueberry, you're screwed. Like you're done. It's going to activate your immune system and you're going to die, basically, which I don't agree with. But anyway,
no, me neither.
Different
Not
conversation. Also, but I believed it at the time. And so I would like have these desires, drives to eat something I wasn't supposed to or whatever, because I think my soul was fighting back. It was like, you're not doing, this isn't right. Yeah. And so I'd have something I wasn't supposed to have. And then that was like I would guilt myself and beat myself up. And then I would literally just go and like eat anything I could, because I was like, well, I got to start from the beginning, ground zero tomorrow or next week. So like blah, 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 blah. And I would feel bad, horrible. And I built a really unhealthy relationship with food at that time. And this was like age 14, 15. Like this progression began my first year of high school. So This is like my first year, second year of high school. I was like going through this kind of craziness reading. And it was like, I would have notebooks every day. I would write all the foods I could and couldn't eat. And I was like obsessed. I mean, obsessed to the max, just because I thought I would heal this way. And then I learned about it. You know, it was a multi-step progression, but ultimately this experience in the beginning showed me that it definitely wasn't all about food, and that food wasn't going to solve my problems. I became aware throughout this process, and we can dive deeper into this, but I became aware of Dr. Jack Kruse and the research on light and mitochondria that he was sort of illuminating. And that led me down a huge rabbit hole of, you know, the idea, for those who haven't heard this, but I imagine most of your audience has, is that, you know, the idea he was espousing was, hey, if you're one of the people trying to heal with food and it's not working, it may be because food isn't the only factor responsible for health. It could be that your mitochondria, your cellular engines aren't working, and that's what you need to be looking at. And so I thought, interesting. That's a very interesting idea. And I was, of course, like, I was like a fish, and I got hooked, and I went, because I was like, this is a perfect hook. And Jack's very, he speaks in a very appealing way in that kind of regard. And so I went down that path, learned about light, read all these books about energy, spirituality, and basically became convinced, well, not spirituality so much, just energy at the time, scientifically speaking. And I became convinced in this idea that health isn't really about food. Food isn't the main thing. Light is the main thing, because light is, first of all, the basis of all food, but also the basis of all light at a much more foundational level. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting, cool idea. And there's tons of science behind it. And all the predictions that people like Dr. Kruse and his contemporaries, Dr. Wunsch, all these amazing light researchers are making are coming true. Their predictions, their research is super cool. So that was kind of the progression that got me from being young to having these challenges, looking deeper, going from food to light. And, you know, that was still 5 or 6 years ago. Since then, I graduated high school and wanted to start a business. And of course, I started my business, Raw Optics, making blue light blocking glasses, screen and sleep lenses for people who are, you know, in the modern world, basically, and who don't have a big bright sun shining on them through an open window right now and a blue light blocking filter on my screen. But that's
Iris software and
Iris software. I have my screen lenses, but again, I don't want to block the sun you see shining on my face right now. So I use my sleep lenses every night, but I don't do podcasts at night, so people don't usually get to see me wearing my sleep lenses. But unless they follow me on Instagram or something, which they might want to if they want to see more of this. But basically, that was the evolution. And the cool part for me, the best part actually, is even years into running the business, years into knowing about this light research and these different people I had come across, I still didn't feel happy. Like, I still didn't feel great, actually. I had definitely had experienced more healing physically and mentally with light than I ever could have with food. Like, food was like maybe, let's say, 1 unit of improvement. Light was like 5 or 10 units of improvement, but it was still like, I didn't know, but the scale was like, this was 10 out of like 100 or even 1,000 and this is my honest evaluation now about the relevancies of these different things. I had read some books about spirituality just out of interest, like many years before, around the same time I was learning about this light research. And there was some kind of like feeling of, wow, there could be some parallel between this Eastern research about or Eastern ideas about spirituality, Western ideas about light and energy. It seemed like there could be something. I thought no one else in the world was trying to bring these two together. Turns out many people have been for the last many years, thankfully. But I had read some Ram Dass, and years later, I remember thinking about that, like, geez, I'm struggling so much. And like, I remember reading these books, like, life doesn't have to be a struggle. Like, it can be this amazing experience, as I kind of felt as a kid. So I looked into this guy, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I was super fascinated by this, idea. He's sort of the modern equivalent in the health communities of someone in meditation and spirituality. And I thought, what, this just, there has to be something here. I've got to look into this so that I'm not just continuing on this treadmill of like doing all these biohacks, because there's all these biohacks and all these things, how it is, like the diet.
Exhausting. Yeah.
Quite frankly, yes. There's a lot of, it can be exhausting, and there's so many podcasts, and everyone wants to listen to every single podcast and all the content. You got to keep up. Otherwise you're going to miss something. Like, it doesn't work. It didn't work for me. And I didn't want to keep being in that another guinea pig wheel. And so when I learned about these ideas about energy and our internal energy systems, it made so much sense. I had already ascertained that the missing step of the light diet, as I call it, was cultivating our inner light. And now this was just the time to actually start learning it and applying it. And so this is really, now I'm focusing on how can I take, first of all, myself and improve myself on every level, because so often I see that, including within myself, that when I was younger, I had these big lofty goals. Like, I want to fix the world. And like this idea, like I need to go out and change others and tell others about what I think is right for them and do all this stuff. And it became so clear that the only person I can change, and people hear this like a cliche, but like I felt it finally, that the only person I can change, the only thing I can do to affect the world is change myself and change my experience of the world. And then maybe that causes an effect on others. That would be awesome. If I'm beaming that light, but you have to become the light, and a candle that's barely going out can't give light to other candles. And so that was my experience. And that's what I'm focusing on now. I came to believe that all of the evil that we see in the outside world is some evil that exists within us, and we have to get it all out. And then we can't blame our problems on things or other people or circumstances outside of us, as hard as it is. So that's sort of my progression, and that's it.
Wow, that's really, really amazing. And I'm a huge fan of Dr. Dispenza. I've read all of his books, and before I jumped into the whole carnivore thing, I was very heavily involved, and I still am involved in Vedic meditation and studying the Rig Veda, getting those. I had a teacher who was kind of orally handing those down to me. Like, you can't get those from a book. You have to actually have someone tell you those. And it's funny, I had kind of lost touch a little bit with that, or lost faith in that a little bit, because I was focusing so hard on the food for so long. Just like you, it's like we, go carnivore was what I did. And I had a lot of things that got a lot better for me, but I was just left with so many holes, and it's like, the deeper you dive into the food thing, the deeper you dive even into the light thing, which is my current, like, I love this stuff, but you do really miss out on the spiritual connection. And I've connected with some really cool people in this kind of quantum space, and had some cool conversations offline. And that's a lot of what's been coming up offline in the conversations, is the real spiritual realm, and are we connected there? Are we just staying in the physical of like, can I do this biohack and this biohack? And I need that, this accessory and that accessory. And how much is it really helping people is the real question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, it's like now I'm like, God, where do we go from here? Because it's you just
Well, there's
opened up
lots of
this.
places to go, but I would say that one thing that's really interesting for me is that, sort of inspired by Dispenza, the more that I learn, the more that I start to see there's this idea that many share in the spiritual world, which is the idea that we're sort of living in a simulation in a way,
Yeah.
or
Oh, yeah.
that we can really create our reality. But the more that I connect with that, the more that I realize that it's really true. Like I find in myself, actually, I'll speak about myself. Like I, for so long, took for granted, like my body, like I'm this matter, this material mass and all this stuff. And so much so that I just accepted so many basic ideas about myself that I don't know if they came from others. I don't know where they all came from, but these ideas that like I'm supposed to be, that I'm just like an ant, like an ant crawling on the earth, something like this, that we're just bound to the ground. You know what I mean? We're earthlings, that's it basically is a good way to put it. And that we're limited by earth and by our body and by physics. And in a way, I think we probably are, like I'm not going to go jump off a building and say I can fly. Like that's not really what I'm talking about. But within the confines of, okay, gravity, and maybe we can't walk on water, although some masters apparently have, and so on and so forth. Like within these confines still, like what difference is there between me and like a computer hologram, and I'm like a conscious, like, could it be that I'm a conscious computer hologram talking to you, another conscious computer hologram that's basically able to create whatever program it wants in real time in every moment,
Yeah.
To me, that's really interesting because like it puts 100% responsibility of the creation of our lives onto ourselves. Like literally every thought, every breath, every word becomes a part of the creation process. And that's a lot of, at least to me, that strikes me as a lot of responsibility, actually. And I think that's why people want to go unconscious. I mean, I've seen in myself so long, such a strong tendency to just go unconscious and sink into unconscious beliefs. I mean, I probably spend, I don't know, 30 to 50% of today unconscious, maybe more. It's like it becomes natural. Just you go into the programs and let the thoughts run. And if it was only 30 and 50%, that'd be good. Some days it's probably 95% or 90%. I try to make it less and less every day, but that is something that I've started to find really, really interesting, because it means that like we get to create our life and we get to create our world. And, just kind of tying this back to this, everyone being focused on diet, like there's nothing wrong with people focusing on diet.
Right.
I was there. Yep. You've been there, many people have gone there, and it's totally fine. And it's part of people's journey. But what's of interest to me is finding and ascertaining the truth myself as best I can, like I was getting at, living it and representing it as best I can, and then just sharing it so that if it resonates with someone, that maybe just like I had people like Dr. Kruse and like the people he referred me to, and then Dr. Dispenza and many others along the way who sped me up significantly in my ability to step out of that constant suffering. If I can help people with that, it would be my own blessing, for me to be able to be a part of that. And so what I'm getting at is I just think it's important for people who are caught maybe in the world of focusing on food, or even people who are caught right now in the world of just focusing on light. I can say from my own experience, food for me wasn't the thing. For some, it might be. Light alone for me wasn't the thing. If someone is living with chronic distress internally because of some event, emotion, disturbing memory, or something like this, then no matter how much good sunlight I take into my body, I might not be able to use it all the way.
Yeah.
And for me, if I look back to my experience, one thing that kind of came up in the process of this kind of healing was thinking about, or not thinking, but really feeling. I felt that as a kid, my parents got divorced, and there was some sort of trauma or some sort of effect that occurs from that I was not really conscious of. But it's the best thing I could liken it to is like if someone, and this is just a guess, I don't know if this is exactly what happened, and I don't want to just be the person who projects the past and keeps myself reaffirming the memory of the past by retelling the story. But for the purposes of demonstration here, when a adult couple is together and then they break up, like one or both of those people might end up with like a broken heart. If their heart was open and they were vulnerable and they maybe felt like they were lied to, used, like that can break your heart. You can feel it in your heart chakra or for fourth energy center here. And if you're a kid and your parents split, I thought, you know what? Maybe that would have the effect on a young kid, a very young kid who's not very developed, of breaking their heart chakra. Because
definitely.
And how I didn't know that, but how could it not? Because that's the example of love and connection in your life that you're born from, and they split and you're a little kid. It's like, how could you not have a broken heart? It's like, how could you not be torn? And so that, to me, I thought was maybe something that occurred in my past. And so like my heart chakra, the energy centers, when the heart is basically broken, as we say in English, but really just the heart chakra, they say maybe closes or becomes blocked or whatever. There's all these different languages, but something's not right. There's incoherence and so on. Like what I understand now from studying this energy system, the chakras 1 through 7, or energy centers, as Dr. Dispenza calls them. If the heart chakra is closed, then the body, the heart isn't open. The body doesn't feel safe to create, to love. And so naturally all of our energy stays stuck in, the centers 1, 2, and 3 here. And so then we're living in the animal survival centers. We're living in stress, fear, safety, survival, having to use willpower to survive, and energy can't really move up. And I find that, just as a thought experiment, I thought maybe that's what occurred. Now I'm not interested in projecting that and reliving that past, because many people say, oh my gosh, and they won't be willing to get over it. So I don't want to empower people to say, oh, maybe my parents are divorced and I should be. No, don't. That's not helping anyone. You have to want to actually move into a new future. Otherwise you'll forever feel like that. But that's something that's just really interesting, because no matter what carnivore or vegan or any diet someone eats, or light, sunlight, blocking blue light, it doesn't fix those issues. It all has its relevance. And I'd love to talk about like light and the relevance too, because it's very important. And it did help me open up my energy and my mind and my thinking to be able to get into these deeper things. But the deeper stuff is what's interesting me the most right now.
Yeah, that's kind of where you're at right now. Like if anyone tries to talk to me about food, I'm like, no, I'm talking to you about light. Like if I have people that want to consult with me, I'm like, we're not talking about food in this conversation. It's only going to be like 5%, right? But where you are in your evolution is like, we're in a different place spiritually. And I think a lot of people can relate to your story of the separation at a young age. I mean, it's definitely hits me. And as a yoga teacher, and I think people might listen to this conversation and be like, what the hell, Sarah? Like, this is different than any of my podcasts. Really, it's stuff that I haven't really touched on. But, when I started a yoga practice was right after I had seen my daughter go through a horrible vaccine injury and lose all of her speech and language. And it was horrible. And that was my red pill. That was when I shifted everything in my life. And that's when I ran to yoga and started really thinking like, well, these people there's got to be something there because I'm so lost right now and I don't understand what's going on. And I just remember now speaking about, the chakras, that I call them wheels of energy on our body, right? The energy centers, and learning how to do back bends for the first time. I would just cry. Like I was like, it was just too much for my system to handle. And I didn't know about energy so much. It was just like, I would just do them and I'd be at the end of class and just absolutely sobbing because it was trying to break free a lot of that energy that had just been stuck. And I feel like anytime on social media where I share something like, instead of thinking I'm broken and I can't heal, think my cells are always regenerating, right? Like having to replace that negative thinking with a new thought. I get people that will message me and say, your post today just made me cry. Like I never considered it that way. I've been suffering with MS. I've been suffering with this, and I'm trying so hard to fix myself with diet and light and all these things. But it never occurred to me that the programs I have running and the thoughts I have running in my head are just as powerful, if not more powerful, than all this other busy work that I'm doing. And so I just absolutely love that you are bringing these things up and that this is kind of where you're at in your journey. I definitely want to talk about the light stuff, but, and it's relevant for me right now, with some other things I'm going through offline. It's just, it's wonderful to hear you say these things. And I hope that this can have an impact on somebody that's listening, that's just stuck and like, why isn't any of this working? And it's like, have you considered the programs that you have kind of running on automatic in your head and in your body,
Totally. Yeah. It's becoming my daily practice every day to just basically, if anything feels short of perfect, because I think on many levels, life is sort of perfect in a way. I was writing the other day and just entertaining a thought experiment that we are on a big ball of molten magma on a thin layer of rock on that, and flying through space around a big molten ball of fire, and that's what we're spinning around. So we're like these tiny creatures spinning on a molten ball of rock on a thin layer, really, relatively speaking, covered, by the way, in this water that if it moved even at a millionth of a percent of its mass the wrong direction, we'd be all underwater drowning. And we're flying at how many millions of miles an hour through the space and around a ball of fire. It's like, just to choose to be alive, to me, is like a very like bold endeavor. It's not for the faint of heart to really consciously be alive on Earth. And it was just something really interesting when you really step back. For me, it's really fun. And I always did this since I was a kid. Also, just unconsciously, I remember after actually getting into Dispenza meditations, I remember when I was younger, sometimes I would feel the feeling of dissolving into nothingness, like he attempts to have people do in meditations, and get to like this place where my heart would start racing and I would feel like really afraid, because I would actually, not intentionally again as a kid, but I would somehow end up in a place where I felt like the world didn't exist, or I was like one with the world. And it made me so terrified, because specifically it would be if I asked the question like, where are we? Who are we? What are we? And really felt into that. Like, it's really unusual. It's like the question I'm inclined to want to like shout is like, is there anybody out there? Like, where are we? Like, what is this experience we're having? It's because, okay, we can talk to other humans, but like, is there anyone else out there? Is not just ET, extraterrestrials. Like, okay, if this is the universe, like, is there anything outside of that? And then like, if there's something outside of that, where's that? It's this kind of question that may seem to some really esoteric and really out there. But you really think about it, even though it can be scary, the interesting and cool thing to me is it takes a lot of the pressure off. It's like, if that's true, which to the best of all, even scientific knowledge, we know that that's the case. We have no idea where we are, or what we are, who we really are, effectively speaking. I mean, okay, maybe within the context of evolution and what's that again? And, and life on Earth, and where's that again? You know what I mean? Like, okay, then we know who we are, and we have Wikipedia, and it'll tell us and all these things about who we think we are and what we think we are. But like, what does that really mean? And within what context is all of that? For me, if I can really connect to those emotions, which is, I think, what Dispenza, or that energy, which is what Dispenza does. He has people connect to nothing in space, in the blackness, in the void, in nothing, and feel nothing. It's like, that's exactly what I was doing as a kid, I realized. And it just takes a lot of pressure off. You're like, wow, like no matter how bad anything is, it can't be that serious. Like, and I think, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, I could die a painful death, or I could watch my loved ones die a painful death, or I could be the only person left on Earth. Like, these are the worst case scenarios. And interestingly enough, like, people dying painful deaths and watching loved ones or knowing loved ones die painful deaths was commonplace maybe 1,000, 2,000 years ago, but it almost never happens today. Like, we're very, very lucky, except maybe in poor countries and certain really places, in strife and really challenging, which they shouldn't be. And that should be solved, because that's just, I can't say exactly. I'm not a political expert, but it's just people being evil being, used in the wrong ways. And it's just existing, but evil will always exist. So why I'm sharing this is just that it's something that can maybe help people if we all just step back and, okay, do the carnivore diet, don't do the carnivore diet, do the whatever diet, don't do the light diet, don't do the light diet, wear blue light blocking glasses, don't wear blue light blocking glasses. Like, but don't forget that it's all within the context of, like, our lives are the blink of an eye. And how difficult is this? It's so difficult. Like, it's impossible. I mean, not impossible, but it's very difficult. I think that's why Jesus, who, as I learn more, I'm more drawn to people like Jesus and these masters, because it's like, I read the Bible now, and I remember, I don't read the Bible as frequently as I'd like to, actually, but I remember verses I've read from the Bible before, because I like reading. And the Bible is the basis of all Western literature and the most significant book of all the books ever written, effectively, as far as world history and events and literature is concerned. So to me, it seemed like, okay, well, I want to be considered well-read for myself, so I should probably read the 4 books of the Gospels at least. And so I did that a few years ago. And I now I'm learning all this stuff. All these verses I read are coming back over and over again. I'm like, like, this guy knew, he got it. He figured it out. Like, whether he was, people say God himself or just a person who was super enlightened, that's all that aside, just, the narrow is the gate and straight is the way that leads to life. And there are very few who find it. Like, it's a very thin path. But what if everyone could just maintain awareness all the time of the fact that we are like the blink of an eye or a breath, one breath in the universe? How cool would life be? Because all of a sudden it's like, okay, we don't have to take it so seriously.
Take the pressure off.
Right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, I do too. And, my daughter, I talk about her a lot on my podcast. She's non-speaking and autistic, but she spells to communicate. And the kids like her, they kind of psychically communicate with one another, which is fascinating. I'm convinced that the kids like her are actually like the next evolution of human, and people are like, you're crazy. But when you read some of the things that these children write, like especially my daughter, she has a whole Instagram page of the things that she writes. It's like another world. She's talked and written about how she chose to come here, and there was a bargain about her not being able to speak, and that she, how she experiences nature and like what she sees in nature, and how she sees different people have different colors attached to them. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, it's fascinating. And she, like I said, she's my red pill, but she's the one who makes me kind of believe in this stuff and opens the door to that, because I think I would just be extremely closed off to seeing, you know, this like, we're just this blink of an eye, right? And everything doesn't have to be so like life or death, right? That's what she really teaches me, is just like, hey, you're missing all this stuff that we're supposed to be enjoying, and life is hard, and there's really difficult circumstances that, you know, we navigate and everyone navigates. But, you know, I feel like so many people are really missing like the big picture, you know. And it's funny you mentioned Harry Potter. She says her hero is Hermione, and then she always says duh afterwards.
Duh.
Yeah, I'm like, who's your favorite character? And she's like, Hermione, duh. That's what she always spells. I'm like, okay. And we're reading. I do too. And we're reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is what reminded me of what you were saying earlier about spinning, you know, on this ball. I don't know if you've read that before, but that's
I haven't. I've heard a lot, and I'm definitely going to read it sometime soon.
That's so much of like what you just said is like in the book, is like, how can we take ourselves seriously? We're just on this like ball spinning around this thing of fire. And it's yeah, it's so funny that you said that, because that's the book we're reading right now.
Really good thing. You know, I'm going to grab this chair real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
My sun is progressively moving west, whichever way the sun sets. And so as the sun moves further and further west, I see myself shifting to the edge of this. I've been sitting on a bed. But this is good because the light stays on me, and then you get to see me in the light. And anyway.
Yeah.
So basically, can you hear me okay still?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, let's just do this. All right. So yeah, that to me, it's just a sort of natural consideration. You know, it's like, I too am beyond guilty of taking things so seriously, you know, like and that's where it becomes super interesting for me. Like when I say I take a lot of things seriously, like I'm running a business, building a business. Mm-hmm. And on the one hand, based on the perspective of we're floating through the cosmos, you know, one could come to be very nihilistic, and one could come to say nothing really matters. You know, why don't we all just kill ourselves? Why don't we all just go die or whatever? Because it's fodder for depressed mind to continue to be depressed. Like, is there anyone out here? That's one perspective. Another could be, which I find very interesting, could be that this is something I've heard people like Jordan Peterson talk about, but it's really a much more ancient idea. But in the modern world, it's like, maybe it does matter. Like maybe in the scope of, as far as we know, the entire universe, and maybe many universes, and we don't even know what those exist within, what context does the universe exist within, you know, there must be something beyond that, right? But what is that? And it's like, sometimes it's hard to convey this energy through language, but like, I sometimes really wonder, like, even if you ask, okay, what's beyond our universe and where is that? And you just keep asking, like, and where is that? And where is that? And within all of that, what is that? Like what, and just bring it right back to your life. Like, and what is this experience? Like, what is it? And was there a beginning and was there an end? You know, we're not the first people to talk about this, of course, but I think it's something that's not talked about enough, because I don't hear anyone in the modern sphere of public thinking really discussing these ideas, except in the East, in places where sometimes the masters or these wise sages are, from the Western perspective, viewed as crazy, you know?
Yeah.
Which is a great conversation. We could get into the merits of, you know, spirituality versus science. It's tremendously interesting to me. But this idea, to complete it, is that what if it does matter, that even though we're insignificant, like, so back to my case of, okay, I'm running a business. Like I could say, well, because it's all, you know, we have this big universe and the earth, and it's this ball of fire, and I want to have perspective. Like I could say, well, I'm just not going to take my business so seriously. I'm just going to kind of work on it when I want and when it feels good, and not work on it when I don't want. But then, like, my question is that the way, is that the right path? Like, it's kind of like there's one extreme and then there's the other extreme, and all the masters ever have kind of talked about this middle path, that there's some hard to describe. Like, there's this kind of really like tightrope right in the middle where it's like, I remember at all times that I am on a rock flying through the cosmos, and still I choose to bring everything I have to the table and put my, like Jordan Peterson's first rule of 12 rules for life is to stand up tall with my shoulders back. I choose to face life with intention, an open mind, an open heart, with my, like I said, intention, attention, and a genuine willingness to participate. And this isn't for the faint of heart, like we were saying in the beginning. This isn't a path for those who are just interested in being miserable, quite the opposite. But for those who want to be happy, I think this is the path, is to maintain that perspective of oneness, which they call like enlightenment, so to speak, and to have, like, in other words, one foot in that world and one foot in this world, or the head in the heavens and feet on the ground, and just walk that fine line in the present moment. And for me, this is a really different way of conceptualizing the present moment, because forever people talk about the present moment, but I never had any explanations that resonated with me at a deep level until I started to experience it for myself. And my experience was like, the present moment is, I can't imagine if I was even listening to what I'm saying now, I don't think I would have understood it, because you really have to feel it. But just in case someone will understand what I'm expressing, it's like, it's the sense of everything occurring when no effort is being exerted for anything, and you're just breathing and you're just with it. And then you can exert effort for certain goals, but you're conscious that you're doing these, and you can think into the idea of a plan, of maybe of the future, just knowing that none of that really is real. And all you ever have is this experience in the simulation. Like, if we were to treat life back to sort of the beginning, like of this, or this hologram, like, you can think about the future and you can think about the past if you want, but just know that neither of them will ever exist. And maybe more tangible ways for me to express this is something I've been learning in my experience is I always told myself I would do so many different things in the future. This has been priceless information for me, over just that I've kind of come to myself. Like, no one told me this. I was like, how's nobody talking about this? But I would say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that, and I want to do this. But I never actually was willing to do it in the present moment. And what I learned eventually was like, well, wait, if I'm saying I want to do this in my business, and I want to do this and that, but I'm not willing to do it in the present moment, and my life is just the present moment always, it's never going to happen. Like, I have to at one time, or time isn't even a thing. I'm like ditching time from my vocabulary. At one point, I have to be willing to actually do that. And so I can ask myself, I have an idea. I want to do something. Okay. Let's just say I have an idea. I want to do a project for my business. And then I say to myself, okay, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to do that either tomorrow or in 3 weeks or a month. It's like, now, before I would just accept that and it would never happen. Now I'm extremely careful, extreme of that thought process between I want to do something and pushing it off. I ask myself, what do I really think is going to change between now and this idea of sometime in the future that's going to make me want to actually make the effort and take the actions to do that? And so now I almost just, if I want to do something, I just do it in the present moment, or accept that it's not going to happen. Or if I really do, and it's going to take more than just one moment, I am very careful now about anything I put on like a future to-do list, because I'm extremely careful. I'm like, few things, not many. because otherwise it starts to feel overwhelming and you feel like there's so much you want to do and you can never get it done, which is where I lived for so long. I'm like, I'm just not doing that anymore. Either I do it now or it's never going to happen, or I pick the few things, but I don't do what I used to do anymore, which is I think what, if I did it, I'm assuming many people do it too, although I could be the exception, but it's basically saying, it's this exact thing I just described. It's just saying, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do this, but just not really doing them.
Yeah.
We have to get up and start
like looking at my list over here of things that I have for my business that are just sitting on a list. And I feel like the list is just causing me anxiety, of like, I didn't do it yesterday or the day before. And there's these things that, and it's like, if you don't do it when the thought comes, what is that doing for you to just have, is that basically what you're saying, to keep it just sitting there as a list? And
I'm glad you said it's causing you anxiety. This is perfect fodder for great conversation. So like, cause this is how I'm deconstructing everything. I'm becoming lovingly relentless in as much as I can in my life. And so in other words, relentless with love, because relentlessness can be negative energy, but if you do it with love, it's great, like a master,
Yeah.
And so, for example, what I've learned from Joe Dispenza, who, by the way, I've gone to 4 of his week-long in-person advanced meditation retreats this year. So like a whole month out of 12 this year, I've spent sitting, listening to Doc. So I've been able to learn a lot. It's been life-changing for me. And I'm really stoked because I want to carry on his work and perpetuate this mission into the world of this truth in the Western world. Basically, when you say it's causing me anxiety, this is the old model of understanding the world, the way that we use language today, the way that most of us use language today, the way that I've used language my whole life, but am ceasing to do now. It's that things outside of us cause something inside of us.
That's true.
That's basically saying that anytime we do this, and it's natural, it's totally natural, but I'm glad you said it. Even if upon analysis, you'll say, you know what, I didn't mean it, but let's just work with it. Cause so many of us do that, myself included. So but we'll use this example because it's perfect. We say that's causing me anxiety. So stepping back from a scientific perspective, no woo-woo, nothing here, which is great. From a scientific perspective, we know that, at least we can understand that our entire experience of the world is happening inside of our mind, inside of our brain, and everything outside of us. So the sunset I'm looking at, the ocean, the wind, the rooftop, the rocks, the waves, the podcast, the mic, myself, my shirt, all these things are occurring in my brain. Now we assume that they are a representation of something real, quote unquote, whatever that means, that's occurring outside of us. When I say whatever that means, I really mean it. Like, who knows? What does that even mean? But that's a different conversation also. But so whatever real means aside, we assume that that's something, quote unquote, real occurring outside of us. And so, even this whole conversation about we're on a spinning ball floating through the universe needs to be put in this context, that it's something that we assume that's real, that's because it's occurring outside of us. We're trusting scientists who supposedly measured this or understand it, et cetera, years of research. I mean, again, very, very little of which is anywhere within any of our control to do anything, but it's at least fun for thought experiments. But so regarding a more tangible in our experience of life, these things are causing me anxiety. If the whole world is occurring inside of us, we're assuming that it's based on data that's coming and information that's coming in from outside of us, information in the form of electromagnetic energy entering our eyes, basically energy of sound. So also energy and air particles entering through our ears, taste through our mouth, our tongue, smells through our nose, and touch through our body. The to-do list and the things that you have to do or think you have to do for your business or want to do for your business are more probably visual and audio inputs, not really tasting, maybe feeling, but you're probably more feeling internally, not in the sense of touch, but more intuitively. I'm just breaking this all down, just logically, step by step from a scientific perspective, as best I can here. So these things are occurring supposedly outside of us. The inputs are coming in, and then we are making some meaning of that, because that's how it all works. You have some meaning that this information, first of all, to me, just again, aside, it's something magnificent to consider that like you're able to have a business and consult with clients when we're literally just like, I always found it fascinating to imagine a fly. We look at the eyes of flies. It's pretty unusual to imagine that, like, just like we have an experience, like we can't see what a fly is seeing,
Right.
It's not because we're not in their mind, but there's electromagnetic waves hitting those things that we call eyes on flies, which are really, they don't look like our eyes, but they're eyes in some way. And the flies are having some sensory experience. Like that's ours. That's exactly what we're having too. It's just, we connect and relate with it much more and intellectualize it and so on. But so it's already amazing that we can have this experience anyway. And it's also worth remembering. But so let's just say, all that aside, let's say you have to get stuff done. Okay. So let's go off that premise. You got to get stuff done, because that's kind of the premise everyone has today. The things that this information that's coming from outside, it's coming in, it doesn't have any inherent innate meaning. That's what I'm getting at. This information that's coming in, this light, these ideas, sound, frequency, it doesn't have innate meaning at all. It's just bits and waves of sound and particles. So all the meaning, literally all of the meaning for all of it, the light, the sound, it's all internally ascribed. Like we give the meaning for everything. So the world we're experiencing, this is just a super scientific way, breaking it all down, of saying, the world that we experience outside of us is the world that we have inside of us. We see the world not as it is, but as we are. If we saw the world as it is, we'd probably be in a constant state of rapture and amazement as like, where are we? What is this? This is unbelievable, cool sensory experience. So we see the world as we are. And so when we say something causes us anxiety from the Dispenza model, what I've been learning, which is really, really fascinating, and this is an ancient model, it's the model of Jesus and the masters, it's I'm choosing to feel anxiety, and I'm using and creating these things outside of me to reinforce my anxiety and manifest it in the 3D world, because the energy in the world comes from within. And so we take that's where we're starting. That's where you're starting in this case, if that's the thing. And then the to-do lists are just a representation of manifesting your anxiety externally. But the thing is, it's not just about you. I've been doing this for as long as I've been alive, like stress and fear and trying to make, and basically not even consciously trying, but just it manifests and expressed in the form of to-do lists covered with things that can't be done. Like we set the game up in that state, at least I did, for the longest time, so that I could never win, so that I could continue to reinforce my own suffering, addictions, that I could never be free, sadness, pain, misery, fear, lack. That was what I did. So then this is the cool thing about the new model, is that we can take the time, and this is the way Dispenza teaches it, but many other people teach it in similar ways. And it's a public common idea that anyone has access to. Basically, we can change that model by basically, in one example, slowing down our brain waves through something like meditation.
Yes.
You can do meditation or just like reflection, self-reflection, slow down our brain waves and basically start to feel what it would feel like if we weren't anxious. If we were, and I started doing this, I said, what would it feel like at the last Dispenza event? I started doing this because I realized the number one emotion that I was clinging on to, or feeling that I was clinging on to that I wanted to overcome, was always feeling like I was behind and that I could never get ahead. And so I just started playing with something new. What would it feel like if I was always ahead? Always ahead. What would it feel like? It was the coolest thing to really just sink into that. Like, wow, I'm always ahead. Well, I made a list of all things. All of my emails are always answered. as soon as they come in, either spam or deleted, but nothing ever sits around, because if it does, I just don't want it to. I want it deleted, you know, and if it needs to go somewhere and be dealt with, it goes there. If it needs to be put on a to-do list, great. But if it's, like I said before, if it's a to-do list for the future, I'm extremely selective about what I'm going to put there, because usually I'm just using it to reinforce the patterns of not, you know, because more than likely I could just sit down and do it in an hour, but I'm just saying, oh, I'm too busy right now or whatever, which is almost never true. You know, it's just what we say.
It is what we say. Yep.
There's so much time in the day. Also, people would say like Dispenza, and others would say, when you start being present, there's so many hours in the day. And I was like, no, it's impossible. It's impossible. But like, then I say, okay, like I would say to myself and someone, well, go sit and meditate for the whole day and tell me how much time there is in a day. People would lose their mind. And that's why, because we couldn't sit and meditate silently for a whole day, we actually create all these things that we think we have to do.
Yes. You're just like speaking to me right now, because I had this kind of traumatic thing a couple weeks ago. I'm not comfortable talking about it online, but ever since this thing happened, it's a thing that I didn't have any control over. I've been making myself busy. I've been overscheduling. I've been causing myself pain. And I realized it the other day as I was in the middle of like a shitstorm of just things I have to do, all these things. I was like, I did this. And when you can sit there and be like, I did that, you know, like,
oh my gosh, amen.
It's like, shit. And I don't have to do that. It's like, okay, all right, that it's going to be okay. But this is like, we're so used to, okay, this traumatic thing happened. And like Dr. Dispenza says, you know, it's a moment, but we stretch it out for days, weeks, years. And then it's our personality, is who we are, is this stressful event that we've chosen to carry out. And I, you know, like you were saying earlier with your childhood experience of divorce, and I have, you know, I'm 42, I'm a lot older than you. So I have a lifetime of crazy effed up traumatic experiences that I could sit here and talk about all day, but like, that's not who I am. You know, those are the things that have happened, and I've chosen not to be that as a person. And I don't think people really understand that whole connection of just like you're creating your reality so much. And it can manifest in our health, you know, and that's where I feel like a lot of my viewers is like, they have had something happen perhaps, you know, or they've been programmed a certain way as children. And it's of no one's fault. No one's sitting there like magic wand pointing and trying to do this to anyone. It's just how we are. It's our human experience. But then they've carried that through, and now it's manifesting in health, you know, and now they're in a really desperate situation. And I consult with these people all the time that it's like, you know, yeah, we could do all these different things, and here's some interventions that I think are really going to help you that you haven't tried. But until we fix what's going on energetically with us, we're really only going to make it so far, you know?
Absolutely. And that's something I've been learning too, is most people want to be sick. I wanted to be sick for a long time. I really did. I wanted to have something that I could always attach to be stuck in the emotions of sadness. And so much so that, well, where to start? When I was at one of the Dispenza events and going through oftentimes some kind of deep releases and healings, I asked myself, like, you know, I never thought about it, but I was like, wait a minute. Why did I have the health issues in the first place? Like when I was a young kid, I was like, why, you know? And I thought, okay, well, at first I thought it was the food, but it wasn't the food. Then I thought it was the, you know, GMOs, this and that. Like, then I thought maybe it was the light disruption. Even that, even when I dialed it all in perfectly, it didn't fix the dis-ease, the lack of ease that was in my body that was causing, I think, these manifestations. And so, but the energy work started to make more sense. And I thought, like, maybe it was that some kind of challenging event when I was younger, whatever, that kept me with this energy stuck in my lower energy centers, constantly in stress and survival. Like I remember when, you know, my friends and I first thought it was a cool thing to do, to go and smoke weed. And I remember being the one who, like, and this was young, and I remember being the one who made, like, my friends would laugh to death if they heard me telling this story, but like, especially on a podcast, but I was the one who had a list, like 50 or 100 things we needed to bring for every single worst case scenario that could go wrong. Like, we all needed 10 extra clean shirts, like extra deodorant so we could smell clean, like 5 days worth of food, like every single thing. And it's a funny story, but like, I remember that even though I was like a happy kid on many levels, I remember being the one who I was prepared for every worst case scenario always. And still, like, I feel like naked if I go outside without my backpack, because I spent the last 4 years traveling the world with my backpack. I like go literally downstairs, and like my friends' kids are like, "Where are you going? Are you leaving?" I'm like, no, I'm just going to work. But I always have my backpack even in the house, because it's like my safety kit, like my computer, my glasses, my phone, my money, like my passport. Not my passport, usually not. That'd be a little further extreme, but like I need to always have my passport in case I ever have to run. But so not there, but it's general idea. So that was the basis. And I had this sadness. I didn't know it until 4 Joe Dispenza week-long events. I mean, some people want to just go to one. Like, I went to 4, it was a lot. And like, it took 4 weeks of like deep meditation plus my own practice on my own time, which I wasn't being committed enough to. Cause I literally was so intent on reinforcing my own sadness and being stuck that I started to create the belief. Can you imagine how bad this could get? Not bad, but where this goes, you'll see where I'm going. I started to even notice the insidious belief slipping in that I can't meditate on my own time and focus. I need to go to Joe Dispenza week-long events. Like, that would be not just Joe Dispenza, but, you know, some kind of event.
I get it. I mean, I've done 10-day long meditation retreats in Bali, and like, I've done the whole deal. I was this year planning to go to the Himalayas and become a meditation teacher, but took a different path, took a detour. Nice. But yeah, I've done that. And in my own life, I have a practice where I meditate twice a day. But I've been in what we was talking about earlier with trying to overstress myself, dropped the afternoon meditation. Never missed the morning one. Haven't missed the morning one since I was initiated and started the practice, you know, almost 4 years ago. But the afternoon one, this 2021, dropped it, you know? And it's like, why the frack do we do that? Like, why are we skipping this really vital part of our evolution and connection, and like that space in our day where we need to stop attaching to ideas and stop, you know, whirling and being in this frenzy, or like having the backpack on, right? Like, if we're missing that part, like, what the heck are we doing? You know?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And why, if I could attempt to answer it, I think it's that in my case, for me, why? Because I didn't want truly, and when I say truly, you know, people say you want this, you want that. Like, I believe that we have to truly want genuine, to be free from our pain and our suffering and step into the unknown. And we're afraid of the unknown. So I think one reason why we don't want, because we're afraid of the unknown, because the known is to be miserable and stressed. We know what that's going to feel like. It'll keep giving us that hit, right? The unknown is, what if, for example, in my case, like, what if this is an example of the last 4 years of my work, my business stuff. What if I finally decided to not be afraid of what people think? So I'm not even really worried so much about what people think, but maybe not be afraid of that's actually a real genuine one, of what people think, of if I'm speaking out, telling the truth, like being judged, of success. Like, what if I just wasn't afraid of being successful? Like, this business, this movement could probably go really far if I was willing to really let go of my personal attachments and fears to being comfortable, you know, and willing to step out and speak out in some healthy way. So in the case of the Joe Dispenza events, like I noticed that I was even starting to tell myself that maybe I wasn't disciplined enough to do this work on my own. Maybe I needed to have someone like shepherding me, and I caught it, thankfully, because I was doing that. I was like, no, I am not going to believe that and go down that road. And I started after, it took a while, but I started after a few of these events. Like, I would go unconscious, but I started after a few of these events when I would notice myself starting to get stressed, even if I didn't meditate every single day. I also wouldn't beat myself up if I didn't meditate every day. Like, you know, even though it's maybe best and ideal to do so, because why wouldn't you want to create your reality every day? But okay, if I don't every single day, maybe I want to choose. I can say to myself, maybe I want to choose to continue to live in the known some days. Okay, maybe that's what I want to choose at this time. Maybe not. But when I would start to get stressed and notice these loud voices taking over of this is how you should think, this is what you should do, I would start saying, like, finally, recently, like, no. And I would sit my body down, and I would sit down, and I would just like Dr. Dispenza describes, you know, taming a stallion. Like, I would just make it sit, and I would I would face that emotion. And this is the thing that's so hard, you know, I love speaking about this with you because you get it. But, you know, even if we don't both maybe practice it all the time, because we're also not perfect, but it's like when it is the hardest, when it hurts, when you feel like you're going to die, that's the time that matters. And every single time that I go and I sit down and I truly, truly get over myself, I just feel so grateful and so happy with my life that I did. And I remember, actually, there were times when I was a kid, I just remember in high school, where there were nights when I would just be so, and this is the same dis-ease that I was perpetuating for so many years, but back years ago, I would be sad, I would be depressed, I would be stressed, I would be looking for everything to be sad and stressed about, some fight, whatever. And then my friends were like, asking, like, come hang out with us. And I would be like, no, like, I'm just really not feeling good. Like, I'm like wanting their, like, you know, them to be sad with me, you know, and wanting them to feel
reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly. Reinforcement, all that. And I just remember some nights, I don't remember what it was. Maybe I would cry and let something out. I don't know. But I remember some nights I would, like, this is just the example I have. Like, I would say, you know what, like, I'm going to be happy. Like, I'm actually just going to be happy and just stop being sad. And I would go out with my friends and just decide, it's that kind of feeling when you're like, you just like, kind of like, you know what, I'm just going to surrender. I'm just going to laugh a little bit here. And like, and you almost want to cry because you're like, why was I being so abusive to myself? Like, why was I being so unkind to myself? And it's just something like the most beautiful feeling in the world. And everyone knows it. It's called love. And it's something like unbelievable. And anyway, that for me has been a beautiful process. So I think for me, for you, for everyone, like, it's always going to be this evolution.
Yeah.
But if we can walk that fine path that Jesus described, which is when someone slaps you in the face, let them slap you on the other side of your face. Like, don't make it all about forcing and controlling with your ego. And like that, somehow it's so hard to describe, but somehow that act of just surrendering and just like humbling the ego, you realize, and it's like what the masters talk about, like if you can fully humble your ego and eliminate your ego, you lose yourself and you gain the whole world. And literally, if you could lose your ego, if we could lose our ego entirely like a master, which is really difficult because it'll literally feel like dying, because it is dying in every sense of the known self, and everything we can imagine death to be like, it would be like that. But you realize, you don't become, because we already are, but you realize your oneness with the entire universe, like fully, this, you know, idea we were talking about, that we know intellectually that we are one with the spinning planets and the earth and the sun and the moon and the stars. We know that intellectually, but we might not feel it because there's all these little things that we think we have to do and we think we have to complete in this lifetime. And the more we can let go of all these, the more power we gain every time we let go of one of them, in my opinion and experience. And the best part is it doesn't mean we don't get to run our business or do our business or do our work. We actually still get to, we just don't have to feel like we are dying doing it. Like we're stressed doing it. It becomes a gift and not a curse.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where a lot of people don't see that as a gift. And it's a hard thing. It's a hard place to get there. People have different stories and things, and the addiction to that pain and suffering is stronger in some people than other people, for sure. And I've lived it, you know, like I'm in recovery. I haven't had alcohol or drugs in 5 years. I've been in recovery for like 11 years, but I took a break. Not really advisable, but that's one of the things that we work on so much, or not really work on, but it's, you have to get to this place of surrender. And we always say, just stay in the middle of the bed, you know, like that's our kind of version of the middle way. And, you know, somebody who almost died from trying to numb out, essentially, that's the only way that I can get, you know, enjoy life and be happy, is this idea of like letting go of my control over the outcome of the situation and enjoying and being in that moment, you know, as maybe not even understanding a damn thing. And like the older I get, the more I just say, I don't know, more often. Like that's one of my favorite answers for things. You know, I do know a lot of things, but then there's just a lot of like, hey, I don't really know, you know, and there's a lot of comfort in saying that for me.
Amen.
Yeah.
And when it's like we were talking about before, like when you do know something, even if it's in the context of it's where these, flies in the wind and dust in the wind or whatever, like, but when you do know something, that's what I'm learning. Like, speak up. I heard Paul Chek recently say, like, life is short. You're going to die. Like, why not die or at least live fighting for something you believe in? Now, I think I do observe, I see that there's a desire to often fight just for the sake of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really, I think that doesn't probably serve so many people, but fighting for love, like letting love be the guide, that to me is really beautiful. And gratitude, and overcoming the evil that lives within each of us. I think that's something really, really powerful. So, and you said about, things being harder for some or others, like, again, it goes right back to, it's as hard, in my opinion, as people want to make it.
Yes.
So the people who are the hard, it's the hardest for them. It's because they want to make it really hard.
But I don't think they know that they want to make it hard.
Maybe not, but let's tell them, so
yeah.
Because why not? Because I'm sure, because their soul wants to be free for sure. We can be sure of that. So it's just whatever trauma. But like, I mean, can you imagine? For me, I'm 22 years old. It was like, I'm lucky and blessed that I'm on this journey, I think, especially at my young age. But I can imagine someone who's 50 or 60 years old, who spent a lifetime reinforcing a personality and emotion to finally realize that they could have done. I mean, the amount of like, oh, I wish I could have done it over again. Like, and that is another belief that has to be let go of. Like, and you can hope maybe one can believe in reincarnation or heaven and that they can finally achieve redemption at that late stage in life. And many people do it again at Dispenza's events. So
yeah, it's
a really beautiful thing we're speaking about. I think I know it's super important. And for me, it's just this idea, and when I was saying earlier that I believe evil lives within each of us, what a way to maybe explain that more in detail was that when I was like, I was asking myself, I said to myself, sort of, I feel that I don't have the spark and the excitement that I did when I was 17, when I first started my business. And I was at, like, when you actually heard me on that podcast that you listened to recently.
Yeah, Luke's story. Yep.
And I felt like I lost some of that spark over the last few years. And I thought maybe I got disillusioned, jaded, bored, overly stressed, just focused on a business. It like became, And these are some of the stories I was telling myself that aren't necessarily true, but maybe that's it. I felt like I lost some spark. I was like, what was it that I was attached to when I was younger? And there was some aspect of just pure inspiration, but there was also some aspect of like, I need to fight the bad guys and need to like, which is, I think, admirable in a way, and also juvenile, but like, I started to learn like, no, the only evil that I can overcome is all within myself. And like, if I was willing to overcome that evil, and you don't have to be willing to, but if I were willing to overcome that evil, I can live in heaven on earth. And that's all that I actually want. I don't want to go to somewhere. I mean, sure, I'm in Europe and Sardinia right now, but this is a reflection of the work I've been doing on my, internally. It's just an outside manifestation. Like I mean, I'll just tell the story honestly. Like I'm staying at a friend's property on the south side of Sardinia, a beautiful, huge property, dozens and dozens of acres, a house right on the water. And I'm not even, paying anything for it. I'm blessed. Like I've been blessed. Wow. And I think I'm blessed maybe because my friends, people who hear me on podcasts and reach out, billionaires, tech CEOs, founders of big companies, people just reach out because they see that I'm doing the work and I want to be doing the work and overcoming. And people, I think, are drawn to that. They're like, yeah, maybe it's because I'm just not willing to lose the childlike innocence. Like I just don't want to lose it. Even though maybe I was close to, and I felt like I was dying, but that evil, it's like, I can overcome it in myself. I know this, this, we all know this, not everyone, but at least we do. Cause you've studied Dispenza. You've studied these teachings, of course, like we both know that we can live in heaven on earth just by changing our perspective. And I keep that with me everywhere I go. In every moment I know now, and this is like my saving grace, even if I'm not doing it, although got to be careful with that. But no matter what, I know, okay, it is possible that I could be in a state of complete joy and bliss in this moment, in any moment. I just hold that with me. It is at least possible if I'm not feeling it. Now, I'm still creating separation in those moments by thinking it rather than just surrendering to it. But just by sitting down, changing my inner world, I can literally open my eyes and be a different person looking through the same eyes. And that's difficult. It requires practice. It requires willingness to observe our patterns and overcome them. And I'm honestly like, this is like a huge sales pitch for Joe Dispenza. I'm like, guys, like check out his work. But I think it's so important to be sharing because that's the only battle worth that is the battle I think we fight, and not even fight, but it is the aim and end of all existence, I believe, is taking evil and turning it into good. And it's like, in a biological sense, we're taking carbon and hydrogen and oxygen and basically burning through them biologically, and taking water that was split by photosynthesis and held in free air and in a carbohydrate or a fat, and then eating the carbohydrate or the fat, the hydrogens in that form, and then breathing the air back in that the plant initially released, and then putting the hydrogen and the oxygen that were split by sunlight back together to make water and release that sunlight energy. Like basically light breaks water, makes, and the energy is stored in the plant. And again, the oxygen is released. Just repeating this because people usually don't get it the first time. Sun hits water, water splits, and the plant holds the hydrogen and the sunlight energy in the electrons of the hydrogen and breathes out the oxygen. But you have the hydrogen and the oxygen now split. Human eats the plant, or the animal that ate the plant, where the hydrogen and the sun energy is stored, breathes in the oxygen, and then we put the two back together. And that's basically the cycle of life and our investment in life. So that's the biological explanation for what life does. But like, it's much on a spiritual level, it's much deeper. And I find it much more fun anyway, on a spiritual level, like what we can do. And some people can do it at a basic level, and their life and joy, and I think, and everything will be corresponding to that. And some people choose to do it at a really high level, and their joy, they are rewarded at that level. But basically what I'm saying is that process of taking mundane things like earth matter and turning it into energy, and basically furthering the evolution of the universe, furthering the trend, as scientists say, towards entropy of the whole universe, or as religious people say, which is interestingly enough, the exact same thing, glorifying God, pleasing God, or loving God. So satisfying the universe, which is what scientists say, because molecules are satisfied when their electron orbitals are fully satisfied. And that's what all life and all chemical reactions trend towards, is the state of satisfaction or entropy. I literally asked my high school science teachers when we learned about this, when hydrogen and oxygen would bond and make water, I said, and they would say their outer orbitals of electrons are satisfied. I said, that's the only word you guys, there's no other word. Satisfied? That doesn't sound very scientific. They said, yes, satisfied. So life and all chemical reactions in the universe, but life especially, its job is speeding up, satisfying the universe. And I learned this, and I made it my Facebook bio years ago. I said, with every breath, we satisfy the universe a little further. This was years ago, learning about the scientific perspective. And then more recently, learning about spirituality, I realized all spiritual traditions say the goal is to love God, please God, or glorify God, basically synonyms, right? And I thought, satisfy universe, please God. It's the same exact thing. It's exactly the same. It's not like a hyperbole the people who have been doing this for thousands of years came to the same conclusions scientists are trying to come to. We don't know the answers, but this is what we get to do, is take basically the base metals and turn them to gold. And so what I'm really interested in sharing, this just clicked for me, is that those people who choose to take more base metals and turn them more into gold, it's alchemy, but it's very difficult. And specifically what I mean is, like, we can take emotions of pain, hatred, all of this energy, and within us, we can turn it into love, but we actually have to feel it. And so a friend of mine not long ago said, he told me he's come to conclude that the spiritual process is the path of holding pain. I think he was wrong. And I felt so intuitively at the time, not directionally inaccurate, but not fully, it didn't feel fully right. Because it can't just be holding pain. I'm like, that's boring. Come on. It's turning pain into love, loving pain, like, which sounds really sadistic or weird.
No,
loving.
I get it.
It's
I get it.
Transmuting pain with love. So
I used to have a teacher that would say, when they had a thing that would happen to them, they would express gratitude, because then they would say, now here's something that I get to alchemize. Here's something that I get to experience and overcome. Like, they'd be grateful when something hard would happen. And I'm like, maybe one day I can get there. But I feel like is that kind of where you're going?
Exactly. And the thing that just clicked for me the most, and it's so funny, the timing's perfect. The sun is literally setting at this exact moment. The bottom of it's touching the ocean right now. I'm like,
wow.
I need to see it. It's funny. It's really far north. So basically, let's see. I also feel that I never felt this before, but that those people who decide to do more of this, like those, for example, great spiritual masters or CEOs of big companies, like people who choose for no obvious reason to carry a much bigger burden than they need to carry. Like, they don't need to do that to survive. No one has to be the CEO of a 5,000, 10,000 person company. It makes me respect, because I have friends, some of whom are CEOs of large public companies who are under inordinate pressure. And I always wondered, now I'm starting to understand, like, they're trying their best, I think, to take this, what they can, and transmute it into like some pain or lower energy, and transmute it into something greater. And no matter how they try to do that, I think it is admirable, and okay, I don't want to get into Bill Gates right now, but I would just say the best thing anyone can do in our world who tends to have contempt for Bill Gates is actually just to love him, like, and just imagine, like, love the guy. It's as hard as it could be. That's the best way we can contribute. Like, imagine, sometimes it helps to imagine maybe the person's just hurt or confused or in pain. And that's their way of getting out. Like, they could just be loved, because by hating someone, and as the quantum theory goes, like we're actually transmitting that. And the more people who project that, the more it becomes true.
Yes.
You know, the more, if someone comes to you and it's like, I think you're an asshole, you know, like you're a really bad person. Like immediately your response, now the best response would be like, I love you so much still, you know, but
who does that?
The normal response is like, yeah, and you're an ass, like you too, right? Like
exactly.
People become what we project them to be oftentimes. Like I see this in relationships. Like when I project someone to be, and you know this too, I'm sure, like we project someone to be some just inconsiderate, mean, unkind, this and that. And they literally become that person, at least for us, because our only experience is the internal experience. And if we're creating that person to be that way in our experience of the world, which is all we have, that's how that person is. And then we're going to talk to them in ways that reinforce that, and they're going to become it more. And it's just so funny that, and so we imagine it's so hard because I'm going through this process of like starting to live. It's like new life because I get on podcasts and I think, oh, I remember what it was like to get on podcasts. I need to, you know, show up and be this expert and talk about light. Well, what if I didn't have to do that? What if I could just be myself and just talk about whatever I want to talk about and just share what I think is valuable, tell the truth to the best of my ability, be soft and gentle and easy, and just not worry about what people think. And maybe people, I mean, we know people relate to that more because people like someone who can be vulnerable, who's not afraid to cry and tell the truth and be vulnerable. You know, we know that, we see that. So why don't we just do it more and everyone will be happier and feel better. So anyway, so this is, to me, been a really beautiful conversation, and we can continue a little bit more if you want. Like I'm open for anything, or we can record another one down the road, but
yeah. Do you have time to talk about light at all? Because I know we've been going.
I'd be happy. I could probably go for another 15, 20 minutes and just go through a few things if you have some like particular questions you want to get into. And then we can definitely, if you are interested, I'd say definitely we have plenty of fodder for another conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, it's hard for me to jump from like everything we just talked about to going back a little bit to those people who are kind of stuck in the food mentality and going more towards something like the light diet. But yeah, what would you say would be something that people that are stuck in that food mentality and that are trying to make that jump into looking more at light as influencing their health? What would you say to that?
So I can tie this together, I think, really, really well. And where what we've just spoken about doesn't just go out the window and I start saying, oh, it's all about light. Cause that's like, it's
all the same. One of my teachers, I just was thinking of him as we're talking. Sorry to interrupt.
Tell me, please. No, tell me.
He changed his name about 20 years ago to Light. That's it. No one knows what his old name is. No one knows what his like real name is. But he, after was initiated and began teaching meditation, actually changed his name to Light. And I was just thinking, you know, he's one of the teachers, and that's the tradition that I'm trained in. And it never hit me until this morning when I was talking to you and we're going all spiritual, and then tying it back to the actual light thing. I'm like, wow, one of my very first teachers that got me to meditate every day, his actual name that he legally changed it to is Light. And that's, it just, it just hit me, you know?
I get it embossed on my suitcases and stuff, Light, you know, it's like, but yeah, so let's see, one moment here. So a good way to look at it, and for me, is that in this discussion of raising the frequency of things, the lowest frequency of, well, the goal is to become more light in my evaluation, in my goal, I'll say, and to feel more light, more joy, more bliss. I do believe from the Eastern teachings that it does come with feeling more light, comes with these feelings. And so that's what I've come to believe here. And so focusing on material things, matter is the most slowed down form of all light. And so that's where that energy is, which is fine, but it's not changing the ultimate energy. Then there's physical light, especially like external light, like sunlight, and artificial light has negative effects. Sunlight has positive effects. These are a big step in the direction of the kind of top of the pyramid for me, which is us being able to, using our mind, which is an energy force, alter and modify the light that is who we are, our mind, changing our mind. That's like, to me, the top of the pyramid. But so I believe that if I had to go straight from food to changing my mind, it would have been much more difficult. So God or the universe, whichever the listener prefers, brought, same thing, interestingly enough, brought me to, or as far as I understand, brought me to looking at light, physical, material, energy, light, as a stepping stone, to, as a bridge to what they call spirituality, which is also related to light. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the light. It's all about light in spirituality. So to start to be able to think more like this and move this direction, now there's nothing stopping anyone from just going straight to changing their mind and deciding to be happy. And I think this would be the best thing people can do.
Yeah.
But to speed up the process, this is a great way to put it, is so people like Dr. Dispenza, are really focused on meditation. And I really value this because he wants people to be able to change their energy, change their mind, become the creator of their reality. And I think amen to that. It's very powerful, and it's helping many people, myself included, by not having to be about a particular food, diet, or lifestyle. I think that's valuable. I think it's also really interesting to observe that in the East, where people have been doing these types of meditation practices to master their mind, and ultimately some masters, for those, to those who are open-minded, who may be listening to this, masters have been able to basically maintain such full total control of their own mind, which is one with the universe, that they actually become one with the universe and have the ability to manipulate things like natural events on Earth, like weather patterns and the will of other people and so on and so forth, which sounds miraculous, but read the Bible and that's exactly what Jesus did. Walk on water, heal people, all sorts of things. And that's why they called him God, the Father and the Son, the only begotten Son of God on earth. The only thing that I don't like or don't see to be true in the Bible is that Jesus, they say, was the only one. There are other masters who have attained such powers, but Jesus is regarded as one of the greatest or most powerful of all of them. And so, not to offend anyone's beliefs, but this is just as I understand it right now. And so, others have attained some powers like this. I don't know about walking on water, but basically teleporting their energy field, resurrecting after death, and so on. So in India, where they've been doing this for a long time, they've kind of got it figured out, in my opinion. People can read the autobiography of a yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, who is an amazing Indian master who came from India to the West 100 years ago to teach this wisdom, almost 100 years ago exactly, and to teach this wisdom, and basically documents his, as a kid, trying to find, the truth, trying to find God, and traveling through India, meeting all these masters with powers that, to the profane, those who don't believe, those who have no faith, would say impossible, right? The scientists, or those who think that science is God, is the answer. But masters who could take any object and give it any scent that they wanted, and it would maintain that scent forever. Masters who never slept, the sleepless saint, they called it, the levitating saint, the saint who literally levitated. Just, they were so light, their body was so light that they're literally just levitated. They could float. It sounds crazy, but call me crazy.
Look
Read
up
it
the
yourself.
cities, you know, that's what you're talking about a lot is the cities, the superpowers, right?
Yes, that's what
Yes.
they were, you know, that's what was written about. Just so the reason I'm mentioning all this just to kind of spark a little interest is that and point to the fact that in India and the East, they've had this as a culture for a long time. And they have also studied how can you set up your biological state so that
Yes.
it is most conducive for meditation, to be light, and to be very feeling soulful. This is where things started to get really interesting for me. So I studied from two people now in the East, many people, but two primary people, Dr. Jack Kruse, who is all about light environment, circadian rhythms, timing, really, really valuable, amazing stuff. Now teaching people a lot about Bitcoin, which is also super powerful, amazing subject that's very fascinating and very relevant because it's a change from currency from representative more of humans to representative more of God and God's will, because it's something that can't be manipulated. So it's a pure representation of energy, and it prevents mass manipulation of and theft of human time and life force and energy and enslavement of people. But that's a different conversation. Really, really beautiful one though. It has re-inspired me and many other people about the future of humanity, what it offers, and the fact that it really can't be manipulated as far as everyone and the smartest people in the world can tell. But anyway, so that's one teacher. And then that's the physical, the external. The other is Dr. Dispenza, which is the internal, the changing energy, the spiritual, right? And interestingly enough, just a really funny story. I was united with a friend, more like a lifelong brother, who's like my brother. He's from Russia, a bit older than me, about 10 years older than me. And he actually gave me this kind of really cool Rudraksha necklace, which is a sacred bead from India that I'm wearing. So it's like a necklace also, but he's like my brother, spiritual brother. And he had the similar spiritual path, but instead he went to India. And just like I studied from people like Jack Kruse and all this, generally representative of the physical and the ways to improve our health from an external perspective, which is really important. And he also talks about improving your mind and things like this. And then I also studied from, Dr. Joe Dispenza and also Ram Dass and many others, but it's just two ideas I'm representing. This friend of mine, who's actually part of a Kriya yoga lineage, interestingly enough, that Yogananda was a part of, and has taken a really Hindu name called Balarama. It's his name. And so he studied first in Ayurvedic school, which is over there representative for me. It's the same kind of this external. What do you do on an outside? Yeah. What are the things you do there? And then also to complete his education, they sent him up to the mountains and said, you should go learn from our ancient wisdom from our country, from the masters. And he became initiated into this, Hindu or this Kriya yoga lineage, which isn't necessarily Hindu by itself. But anyway, it's a yoga practice of a breathing exercise specifically for the purpose of actually transmuting lower energy and emotions into higher and greater emotions, as far as I understand it from reading Yogananda's book and studying into it a bit. So anyway, it's like sort of two people, different worlds, similar paths. And I realized that the best thing for me was that, okay, I've come to all this just through being a sincere seeker from the Western world in the United States of America and the West. This friend of mine came to this as a sincere seeker of truth in the Eastern world through India and through, basically through India, through Ayurvedic principles and through the traditional spirituality over there. And so there's this really cool mirroring going on that really got me thinking. When I first got into the light diet, I thought it was all just about light, like light, sunlight, blocking blue light, and all of these things. Then as I started to learn more from this friend of mine, I thought maybe, just maybe, there is a way that we can actually live our lifestyle so as to make us more light biologically, which is more conducive of these higher states of consciousness. That would be super cool. And that's what I realized I was also looking for all this time. And so I started learning more about this sort of Ayurvedic science. And there's aspects of that, as you know, well, because they're very much leaning towards vegetarianism, veganism, and this kind of thing that don't necessarily align with the carnivore way of living. So for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to leave that aside.
Well, however, I actually did vegan I've been teaching yoga for 12 years. So I was a vegan for a few years. So I'm definitely familiar with it.
Great.
And that, but
we don't need to go down that.
Yeah, but that's why I have the name Carnivore Yogi, because I was trying to say it's okay, you can eat meat and be spiritual.
Yes, but, of course.
Yeah.
It's something that's been interesting for me just to learn about. But so that was just, so putting aside the specific food to be eaten about Ayurveda, because people get so
they get wrapped up in it.
Right. Exactly. People get wrapped up.
They get stuck up on it. Yep.
Very much on that. And one of the cool things, the blessings from people like Dr. Kruse and the researchers like Sachin Panda about meal timing and so on, out in circadian rhythms. And
yes,
I was able to see when I learned about Ayurveda that some of the biggest principles, in addition to the food selection, is the timing of food and the quantity of food and the type of food at certain times. And so like, I just was experimenting, but I started to eat sort of an Ayurvedic diet. And the main thing was just noticing like I was eating so much less food than I would before, but I needed so little. And I would eat like a lighter breakfast, my biggest, heaviest meal in the middle of the day, and then almost no food later in the day, afternoon, but like maybe like a small dinner around or snack even around 3 or 4 o'clock. And then basically nothing else, or like maybe a dinner. I would have like just for example, if I had breakfast, I'd have breakfast like early, because with this whole
sunrise.
Protocol, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Sunrise. Like as soon as the sun's up, like breakfast, but no later. And breakfast is just a small thing, something small. Then like a lunch could be like 10:30. Like the whole clock is shifting back from what most people are used to. Lunch is usually 1 or 2, and then they're eating dinner at 9 at night.
Yeah.
But so having lunch is the main meal of the day around 10 or 11. It's when the metabolism is most active and it's fueling activity, and you're actually using that fuel rather than eating it at 9 and just storing it as fat, and also ruining your sleep quality because the body's trying to digest it and use it. So main meal, lunch around 10 or 11, or like 11, or really around 11 o'clock, or 12, the latest. And then like maybe I would have for example, in this particular protocol, maybe a snack around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and the light dinner around 4 or 5. But for me, I'm really just like maybe a light dinner around 3 or 4. But it's really just what I would consider a dinner versus a snack. It's much closer to just a small snack, something super light. And then the coolest thing that I was observing from this friend of mine, as a very trained yogi and expert in this diet stuff, he would get up every single day. He gets up at around 2:30, 3:30 a.m. naturally, fully charged, and people immediately, will say, oh, that's impossible, that's not enough sleep. But if you're going to sleep around, if you go to sleep around 8 or 9 and and your body's super light, you don't need a ton of sleep to repair. If you go to sleep at 9, you sleep 5 or 6 hours, you're up at 3 and you're totally repaired. That's, in my opinion, the healthiest people. And that's what I've observed in him. So it fascinated me naturally. And the kind of what I'm getting at is that my light diet, from a very Western perspective that it was put together, actually, I realized, I just kind of have to surrender that what they're getting at, I think probably for the purposes of spiritual growth, is far ahead of what I was able to pull together from all of the Western research and the Western researchers who think they know what they're talking about because a new paper just came out and wow, it's a new discovery.
Yeah.
People have been talking about it for thousands of years.
Yep.
So to summarize all of that, the idea of light is that my belief is that people can start doing some really basic things to truly transform their health. And I'm not, just for the purposes of the time being, especially not just this call, but like where I am in my experience and learning stages, I don't want to get into the subjects of what food to eat, because again, it automatically becomes really dogmatic, maybe in the future.
Agree.
But no matter what, I think everyone could be benefited by a few basic principles, and I'll just list them out and then we can kind of move towards a close here. But basically, the first is actually the absolute importance of meal timing. And I'm just going to put that first. here. So, you know what? Actually, let's start with light so people can understand the context of the meal timing. So the light should be like watching the sunrise or getting early morning sunlight. And if someone's not waking up naturally for sunrise, before sunrise, then that indicates potentially a health issue. Now, another really interesting and as it is what it is, kind of maybe controversial subject in the West, especially, is that in the ancient Eastern view, they acknowledge the difference in the male and female energy system rather than fighting against it.
Yes.
And I don't have, thankfully, because I have a lot of science I can use. I can talk about the subject of the difference between males and females without being afraid of being, I mean, people attack anyone no matter what at this point. But and interestingly, I'll just note myself, just me saying these little things like that I'm adding in invites that energy for people. Like,
you're so right.
So I'm just observing, you see me doing that, like, and people are, I say, and this is controversial, and that, like, people who say something's controversial usually say it because they're actually asking for it to be controversial.
You're so
like,
right. Yeah.
I shouldn't do that. So I'm going to just stop doing that here and now. So basically, males and females have different energy systems. It's actually fascinating. We talk about being the same, couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, literally, males and females merged, split 1.5 billion years ago. Billion years ago is when males and females split.
Wow.
And males and females have been running. Yeah. Talk about different. I mean, a guy named John Gray wrote a book, Men Are From Mars, or
yes,
Women Are From Venus, Men Are From Mars. Accurate, very accurate. We split 1.5 billion years ago at the beginning of complex life. Males and females split, and we've been split ever since then. And what we've done, what males and females has done, have maintained an identical copy within every species of complex life for all time in order for the purposes of reproduction. But we have been different for 1.5 billion years, longer than humans from apes, longer than humans from trees. Can you imagine? Males and females biologically, just to be clear, biologically at a basic level, at one of the most, not on every level, just to be clear, on one of the most foundational levels, not on all of the levels. I just need to be very explicit here. On one of the most foundational levels of all life, have been split for 1.5 billion years. So if anyone comes and says males and females, it's a matter of preference, or it's this or that, it is like saying that me being a human is a matter of preference. If I want to be a tree, I'm a tree. Just to be honest, just being quite scientifically frank. So, because basically the difference is the female sex exists for the propagation of the entire species. The female is, technically speaking, the primary life source for all life. And that's what females do. And males, the males were split and exist for the purpose of basically providing a genetic variability. Now, different species have utilized the male and female relationship for different purposes. For example, certain birds, certain insects, the male inseminates the female, and the female eats the male and uses it as raw materials for propagation of the species. Okay, the beehives, the queen bee, like many of the males, they all work for the queen bee, and there's only one queen bee, and they all die, but not they all die, but many of them die chasing the queen bee in her flight up to see who's the strongest male, because she can fly up way further than them, and they chase her. Someone just told me this recently. They chase her, and then many of them die because they're not as strong, but whoever can reach her, whoever gets the furthest basically gets the female. But so it's like the males are being thrown out. But in humans, as a further evolved species, the males have taken on a much larger role, which is basically, as I consider it, it's to manage all of the front-facing things in this world. That is, biologically speaking, what males' responsibility has been given in our species. Mm-hmm. Broader shoulders, forcing things. So if you talk about Joe Dispenza, the 3D and the 5D, living in the 3D and the 5D, women, and this is something that people can resonate with deeply if they're interested in spirituality, women are more, as I understand it, inclined to be resonating in the 5D, living kind of in the world of enjoyment and love and presence. And men are supposed to be the ones forcing it. So people have always, this is where it's, so many things have gone wrong, but because of, ego and evil and many different things like this. But in my opinion, and the way that I see this from my research really, is that if things went the way they could go, women have a great deal, because you got to be from a spiritual understanding of life. Like, whereas people and many people have said, like, women, there's this naturally, which there should be equality as far as like people's rights and people's opportunities and this and that. But biologically speaking, for all of human history, I mean, we have to keep in mind that the last 100 years is very different than all of human history. All of human history, the way males and females interacted, is that men were the ones who went out and did things, and women stayed at home and took care of the family. In one interpretation, the women have been using men as their basically servants to bring resources to them for all of eternity, biologically speaking, which is actually kind of true. But just to put a caveat on this, I fully believe that in the human species, because of our minds, our egos, which we have stronger than probably any animal, it has gone so far out of balance. And we're seeing this evolution now that men, would abuse their wives, like, rather than worshiping, which, if you saw how I treat like my partner, it's very different from the way, because I understand this from the way that it maybe has occurred through history. But a man who understands that you can, like, basically in a way, like, worship your women, it like opens the relationship up to like divine power, something really, really unbelievable. But so anyway, all that's to say that, let's see, stepping back, I just want to say for people that that's a really interesting and important subject to consider, because I think everyone can relate to that in some way. Like, men can start to realize that it's important to take care of our women and really step up. And, I don't want to be, I'm not the guy, I'm not the person who wants anyone's rights or opportunities or equalities to be limited. Never. At the same time, for those people who want to live in line with what I see to be biological sort of truths, these are some ideas to consider, and this is also what the ancient wisdom. Oh, I know where this came from. This is what the ancient wisdom was saying, is that, women are meant to sort of be like worshiped and treated like a queen and taken care of. And the men are the ones who go out and do the things that, biologically speaking, are not as desirable. Now, in the modern world, this is the interesting thing to me. This is the illusion of the modern world, is that we believe that the desirable thing is to go out and do all the stuff in the 3D world. That's what we believe, because, that's what we see in the TV and the media and movies and shows, and we want to travel. But like, from a survival perspective, it would be far preferable to be the one who stays at home safe and is like, that's where you get to be, like, far preferable throughout almost all of history.
Yeah.
The benefits of being able to go out safely and explore and travel are very new. But so anyway, energetically, that can be a really beneficial thing for men who really want to step up. And that's another thing. I'm going with this because I think it's really valuable. Like, one of the things I've seen is that, our society has wanted to like demonize men, it seems.
Yes,
and
I agree.
Absolutely. Thank you for agreeing. And then
yeah, I do.
And especially, this is the thing, because I see this in myself. I'm talking from personal experience. Like, there was never any example of true masculinity, true, real, genuine masculinity that isn't toxic, that I grew up seeing, that I could really look up to. I mean, of course I shouldn't say that, because of course I saw like my father as, I really should take that back. Like, my father has always been a really amazing man who I could look up to. There's many men out there who do a good job, like Steve Jobs, Nelson Mandela, many people like this. But there's always a dark side, and sometimes the dark side could be wrong, and that's the nature of humanity. And so there's not enough examples of it, is what I'll say. There's not enough examples of how one can live this way. And then, of course, interestingly enough, and this is something just that I have observed, I see, my friends who are doctors see, is that biologically, the male energy system is designed to go out and do things. And this is more from an ancient wisdom perspective, from the Ayurvedic belief, because the Western scientists would say there's no evidence for this, but I'd say it's more likely that our understanding of biology and measurements haven't caught up yet to what they already knew, which is that and it's all very intuitively understandable. The male energy system is designed for getting out and forcing and doing things and overcoming ourselves. And men are best to be ascetics. I sleep on the floor, on the wood floor. I'm learning because of this to discipline, overcome myself. I wake up super early. That's what I'm learning for men. And it's like, sometimes I'm like, geez, women got it good. Like biologically, from an Ayurvedic perspective, women are recommended not to sleep on the floor, not to get up super early and work, but to like relax, sleep in late, sleep on a soft bed. But so no, now men sleep on super soft beds. And now women are being told they need to wake up super early and work super hard.
Work out and
start a super big business and be super stressed, just like everyone else. And from the Ayurvedic perspective, this is not my opinion. The Ayurvedic wisdom is that from 5,000+ years ago is that women thrive through relaxation, through art, through creation, through relaxing. And that women who get into business and are, unless it's a passion project, but when it's from a place of survival, for men, that overcoming of yourself for survival increases testosterone. It makes you stronger. But for women, for women's energy systems and hormonal and biological systems, it can weaken them significantly and actually cause, this is why one theory, the ancient theory and the Ayurvedic perspective as to why many women are having these reproductive diseases and infertility today is because when they constantly are doing this forcing and stressing, it has such a strong negative impact. And so, but there's not enough men literally being raised and brought up in the world today. I hope to be able to change this, where women could find a strong man who's actually going to say, I'm going to take care of you. And if you want to work, if you want to do, you do it, but I'm going to be a man and take care of you. You know, I noticed myself even hesitating using the word man. Can you imagine the world we live in? I can't.
No, it's the world that we live in. And, you know, it breaks my heart because a lot of the women that come to me have lost their cycle, have reproductive issues. I'm one of them who's struggled with that because of this, you know, trying to be masculine, wake up at 5 a.m., do one meal a day, fast, you know, try to be more masculine. And the problem that I'm having a lot with the people that are coming to me is that they're listening to the men, you know, about how to fast and how, you know, how to live your life and do this kind of more stressful thing. And they're wondering why they feel like crap and their hormones are in the toilet. And that's definitely been my experience as well. And it's like, when you can wake up when the sun rises and eat breakfast when the sun rises and live more in harmony with nature and stop forcing everything, that's when I see ladies that are holding on to extra weight drop it. I mean, I've lost 30 pounds this year. Amazing. From adopting these principles. And I didn't change my diet. I didn't go more harder onto carnivore or keto. I actually did start incorporating some carbohydrates. And, you know, it was like, I had to stop this fighting thing that our whole society's doing and the demonizing of a man, you know, it's just, it's scary to me to see how things have changed in our society and how people get so triggered and you can't say certain things about sexuality or about male and female and how we should do things differently. Like, why is this a taboo topic, you know?
I agree. And I'd like to bring it out of taboo and speak about it. And that's it.
Yeah.
Dr. Jordan Peterson comments on, I love him very much because he's not afraid to speak out about the truth as he understands it and you know, stand up for the truth, for human rights, for freedom of speech, for good, what is good in the world and not evil, which is, you get the idea. And one of the things I heard him mention is this concept, this interesting phenomenon of how 50 Shades of Grey, became one of the most popular, super hyper popular books among not men,
but women. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, 80% plus women reading. Now, I don't know any men who.
I never read it actually, but yeah.
Even the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, it's something. So that is a perfect example of this, exactly what I'm speaking about. No one is talking about. Yeah. And so it goes to the extreme. Women don't just want a man who takes care of them. In the book, you know, it's a man abusing a woman. It's actually putting her to be like a sex slave, right? But that's, people are like, oh, like, because that's the just as what we've been talking about, like so above, so below, like, and there's a positive and a negative for everything. You know, I was talking earlier about energy and evil in the world. Like, just to give a simple example, Jesus said, you know, when you see someone, when you judge someone, let's see. Basically, the idea is, before judging someone, first you should cast out the judgment that's in your own eye, because that's the real problem. It's not, you know, before you say to your brother, why are you judging someone? You know, no, you first cast out the beam that's in your own eye, is kind of the verse. It's like, and it's that idea that I've been fascinated by, that like when I judge someone, it's like, I was judging someone recently. Wow, that person's loud, annoying. And I realized, wait a minute, because now that I'm becoming conscious, every time a subconscious thing comes to the surface, I'm stoked now. Like you said about your teacher who appreciated the gratitude. Now I'm stoked because I get to say, I'm grabbing you. I got you. You're not going anywhere anymore. Thanks. I love you. Thanks for protecting me, or not. But it's time to move on. I want to be free of you. And I was like judging this person, this woman particularly, who's a housekeeper where I'm staying. It was kind of being loud. And I thought she was kind of obnoxious and a little bit annoying. And I was sick for a few days. I actually was like, I was traveling, stressing, wasn't eating as well as I could, around a bunch of little kids. I don't know if I got COVID or whatever it is, but I was under the weather, seasons changing. I was out in the wind for hours. Anyway, I was like a little under the weather. I actually also, like a sickness, like a cold or a flu, I feel like a massive transmutation of energy. So for me, it's
that's
like
so crazy. My daughter got sick a couple weeks ago, and she wrote this whole thing, you know, on her letterboards about how when we get sickness, we're casting out old energies and we're transforming. And she said, I felt like this, because she's about to be 14. She said, I feel like this cold was me shedding my childhood. And I was like, wow. What the shit? Like, where did you come from?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's exactly what it feels like. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt that. I felt, you know, I was so grateful. I was hot. I had the sweats. And I told my girlfriend, I was like, I feel like amazing. You have no idea. Like, I feel hot, uncomfortable, but I feel amazing. I was choosing to be happy. And I thought, in this moment, it's the most important for me to choose to stay conscious and grateful. This is when it's not when I'm feeling good, but when I'm not feeling well, I need to remember, because otherwise I'll make myself feel horrible. I'll just go down the rabbit hole, and I won't get over this. I think it could even kill you if you really wanted it to, if you wanted to be depressed and die. But so anyway, this housekeeper was trying to take care of me, and I was actually like mean to her, like because she was like, you should really go see a doctor. I was like, no. Like, anyway, I was even mean to her. And I looked back at myself, like after a really good meditation one day, it was the only thing that many things happened unconsciously, but the only thing that consciously that changed right away, the first effect. And I told my girlfriend, I was like, the best thing that happened in my meditation is I fell in love with this housekeeper woman, because it wasn't about her. It was about overcoming the hatred and bitterness that was in my heart that was causing me to judge this beautiful soul, like, and cast my own pain onto them. That's what evil is. You know, it's within us. And so that's the perfect example for me of like the evil. We say the bad is outside of us. It's all inside of us 100% of the time. Children starving in Africa. Yeah. You're gluttonous. You know, you eat too much and you're ungrateful. And that's why you're worried about children starving in Africa, because you're projecting your total lack of desire to overcome yourself in any way and saying there's these big problems in the world outside of us that we need to solve them in yourself first. And then we can start, like, that's how we change the world. And it's nothing new. People have talked about this forever, but when you understand it, like scientifically, there's a positive and a negative charge on all of these. It's like, so to speak, positive and negative, like an equal and opposite reaction and energy for all of these things. And it's just the law of nature, the law of everything. Like we say, I don't have my healing, you know, and we literally separate ourselves from healing. We start saying, and I started doing this. I started sitting and meditating, and I heard it a million times. I never did it. And I started sitting and saying, like, what would it feel like if I felt whole? And I started feeling whole. And then all the things I thought I needed just started going away. And then I was able to look at the business and the to-do list and say, you know what, I'm already whole. What do I want to create from a place of wholeness? Anyway, though, so this is a branch off of the conversation about male and female energy, which is worth noting. And I'm so glad that you brought up your own experience about this so people can hear that I'm not crazy saying this out of nowhere. No. It's true. Ask anyone. 50 Shades of Grey, like that's the extreme result of no one talking about healthy masculinity, men being strong, overcoming themselves, taking care of women, and women being feminine, creating, loving, being calm, being soft, being relaxed, being taken care of, being loved. Like, you know, but people get crucified today for this. I mean, Jesus was crucified for these ideas 2,000 years ago, and they're doing it to a certain degree today. But so anyway, back to the light applicable things. We'll just kind of move through this, and then this is the best podcast ever. As far as I'm concerned, for sure. For me, the best podcast I've ever done. I'm so grateful. They're always better and better than anything else. So thank you for holding this opportunity. So about light, because I want to kind of run through this. The sunset, as you can tell here, a little while ago. So basically, for those watching or those listening, I'm in the dark. I started with a golden sun beaming on me.
Beautiful gold sun.
It's almost pitch black now, but I have the red light from the computer warming me up. In fact, this is when I would put on my sleep lenses. I said I don't do podcasts at night, but I have iris, blocking almost all the blue light on my computer, but I didn't even think I had my glasses. I forgot about them, but they're right here. So raw sleep lenses. So anyway, basically the thing that I'll just say about this whole thing is that I brought up the female male difference because that has to be kept in mind with all of these recommendations. So as far as getting light in the morning, from what I'm learning now, if I did split every recommendation, male, female, because there are two flavors, two different, basically completely different variants of the human species. It's almost like this is really how it should be put. Like we think, okay, there's humans and there's male and female. No, wrong, actually, completely wrong. There's male and female. That's it. And then there's yeast female, yeast male, tree female, tree male, human female, human male. In other words, people first look at the species and then say, then there's the male and the female variant. What would be the opposite? Imagine looking at the male and female variant and then seeing within each or sex, and within the male and female sex, there's hundreds of different species, and they each have a pair within each one, but they're completely separate lineages, effectively, that broke 1.5 billion years ago. But they always kept a mirror within each species, which is, in my opinion, 100% biologically true. At the origin of complex life, when mitochondria were used to create complex life, there's females which carry and pass down mitochondria, which you've probably heard of from Dr. Kruse or Dr. Wallace, and males which do not pass down mitochondria, but are used for genetic variation in every species in every generation and have varying purposes throughout every single species pair within the greater male and female split. But so anyway, super, super fascinating subject. I've never articulated it that way, but it's perfectly accurate based on the science and the history and everything they know about mitochondria. So, and species and anything. But so the two separate recommendations, men would wake up earlier and actually, be disciplined and be working and doing something like that, or training or whatever it is early in the morning, and women can relax and sleep in and take it easy. But the most important thing is all of us are getting the sun in the morning, getting that sunlight when it comes up, and that's setting the circadian rhythm. Ideally at sunrise, but if not, 15, 20 minutes or more later in the day. And something I did learn that was kind of new recently is that the system's cumulative. It's best to do it every day, but if you miss it for a day or two, just do more the next couple days. It does have a balancing effect. I was learning this from a podcast with the guy who discovered this name, Samir Hattar.
Yeah, I love him.
Podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. Fascinating, really cool stuff, really great researchers. So, but also I do disdain scientists who think they know everything because they're scientists.
Agree.
Because that's just my feeling. I'm the same.
Arrogant. Yeah.
They're they can come off as very arrogant, even though I'm sure they're very, again, my judgment hurts me more than it is it's not even that me judging someone else hurts me as opposed, it also hurts them, but it's not that it hurts. It's existing pain that needs to be cast out. It comes from a place of existing pain. It's not like me judging you, for example, not that I'm not interested in judging you. I already love you, but but if I were judging you, it's not like I'm creating something new. I'm using existing pain and just projecting it out. And I need to I should instead say, no, let me cast out that pain and turn it into love, but feel it first. That's the thing. You have to feel the pain to transmute it, which is why no one wants to do it. So true.
Yeah, so true.
Me too. I mean, me too. I'm criminal number one. I mean, guilty is this more than anyone else in my life. And that's why I said feel like I'm being reborn and starting everything in a different way in the same life. It's like very difficult, but it's the only path worth walking, in my opinion. So if you're going to walk, if you want to be unconscious, be unconscious. But if you want to walk and be conscious,
you're just going to end up back here, in my opinion.
Come back to this podcast in a couple of years. That'd be cool. So wake up, get the sunrise in the morning. Then actually, let's just walk through a day. So morning sunlight. And then if someone wants to eat breakfast would be around sunrise. Yeah. Then, lunch around the midday. And also, as far as sun timing, sunbathing is ideal around the midday period. So the morning sunrise, the morning sunrise light sets the circadian rhythm, but the midday sun basically charges our body, helps build vitamin D, helps increase nitric oxide release in our blood vessels, lowering blood pressure, increasing blood flow, moving nutrients and everything around the body, kind of like exercise, but you don't have to exercise to get it. It's great. So, some people, I just sunbathe a lot and I got really toned and fit, healthy looking, from basically not exercising.
Yeah. I lost 30 pounds. Everyone's like, what was your exercise plan? I'm laying out in a see-through, or tan through bikini every day.
Amazing. I love that.
That's what I did.
Perfect example. You take more light, between this, things we can do, which is what we're touching on now. The root of this particular sect of this conversation is you can do things in the physical realm to be more conducive, to be more light, more conducive to spiritual, soulful states and basically taking care of your soul, your inner light. Mm-hmm. That's what you doing that has done. And it reflects biologically, so that's kind of like the morning and the midday. Sunbathe, we could talk a whole podcast about sunbathing, which is why we should have another conversation, but at least 5 to 10 minutes. But it depends on a few factors. I'll rattle them off. It depends on your skin type. If you're really dark, you need more. If you have light skin, you need less. It depends on actually 6 times more if you have dark skin for the same amount of vitamin D production, that from the darkest skin to the lightest skin. It depends on the strength of the sun, which depends on the time of year and the clouds in the sky, location. Yeah. So time of year based on your location and the clouds in the sky, cloud cover, and your elevation on Earth. And so it just depends on so many factors. It depends the humidity of the air. So really there's no one size fits all answer, but if there was, go out in the sun. And if you have super dark skin and you're in a high latitude, low light, you need way more light, to really get these effects. But you can still do it for sure. People with lighter skin, if you're in a strong light environment, you have to be very careful that you don't crisp yourself. Is the opposite.
Dminder app was my BFF this summer because I'm very European Nordic, but the Dminder app was how I figured out my Fitzpatrick skin type and knew how long to stay out. And when the Dminder app says get out, that's when I would stop. And I never burned once this year and never used a bit of sunscreen the whole year.
People can use Dminder. So that's a great thing for people to start is use Dminder. I use my gut, my intuition, because I might have things going on. But in general, I watch the sunrise and then I try to sunbathe. If I'm in Costa Rica, a place where it's sunny, I might sunbathe 2 or 3 times a day. But more likely, I would just sunbathe one strong session in the middle of the day, 15 minutes on each side of my body. So sunrise, 15 minutes on each side of my body in the middle of the day, and then sunset. But sometimes I'd love like rather than doing actually, I used to try to get it in every day, like longer, but now I just try to make sure I have my core bases down every day, but then maybe 2 days per week, every Sunday is my Sunday personally, but Sunday and maybe a couple other days per week, I'll do just like a full on sun session and just cook myself and like have hours and hours. And it feels amazing, and try not to burn. Like I don't overdo it, but like this is assuming I built my base up through daily exposure, you know. But then usually at sunrise and sunset, like I might take a walk at sunrise or sunset or both, and get lots and lots of warm healing sun, like
the red light.
Red light, and it's amazing. There's the leftover of my sickness. My heart chakra was actually opening up, like it was so much movement of energy. So anyway, so that's like the midday. And then for as far as meal timing, I wouldn't recommend, if anyone's going to eat anything in the afternoon, I'd recommend very little. And then into the evening, and people say, this is impossible, I have to eat dinner with my family. Like, I'm just saying what's best. If you have to eat dinner, eat something, basically nothing, and don't eat anything after 5 or 6 o'clock. Definitely not after sunset. But I used to think, because I learned this idea from some of the people I was learning from in the West, as long as I ate before sunset, it was okay. Like it was like a timer. I had to finish eating before sunset. But if I ate a massive meal right before sunset, that's no good.
I agree.
I'm just learning it is graded, you know, like if I eat a massive meal before sunset, it doesn't help. If I eat basically nothing, like a morsel, okay, it's not probably going to have a huge impact. Like now the sun's down, I'm not eating anything else today. And when I wake up, I'm going to have a great appetite for breakfast. Probably if I go to sleep with like shortly soon, I might be watching actually Harry Potter, interestingly enough, tonight. But if I do and watch it for an hour and a half, I'll be asleep by 8. And probably doing what I've been doing, I might wake up around 3 or 4 and be able to do meditation, work for a while, like the best, because also the brain function is so much higher in these early morning hours. So like literally this Ayurvedic doctor friend of mine, Balarama, he basically explained like you'll get so much more done. And I do, it's like by 8 a.m., you know, I learned from him, like he would have, it's like he could write a book every day before 8 a.m. because he'd be up at 2:30, meditation, Kriya yoga, doing all this amazing stuff. And he's telling me this is the secret weapon, like work for hours, done all his work, train for hours. He's an Ironman triathlete, study maybe even. And I'm like, by 8 a.m., by sunrise, the guy's already done the day. Like it's by lunchtime, it's time for him to go to sleep. And by dinner, it's like he's lived 10 lifetimes. It's like the experience of one day. This is the coolest thing. And I really want to drill this in because I didn't say it earlier. I'm so glad it comes up. The experience of the world can be so radically different. And I always knew this. Like I always knew also as a kid and then getting into paleo that like I knew it was possible to be superhuman. Some part of me, this is what kept me going. I knew it was possible to be superhuman. I did not know how. I did not know why I knew that, but I knew it was possible. I wasn't going to let that go. I was sure. And the paleo diet and all these things, they only reaffirmed an internal belief. One of the things that this friend of mine taught me, Balarama, is that when you read something in a book that's true, it's not new information because the soul is all knowing. The soul knows everything. It's just reminding you of something that you already knew, that it's a resonance. It's nothing new. That. Right. So this was all this stuff, the paleo, the epigenetics. I was like, wow, because paleo did inspire me that we could be superhuman. Now that turned out that it wasn't the thing, but it did at least open my mind. It was resonance with something I already felt and knew, or at least wanted to believe deep down inside of myself. And so just a key point for people to remember, this is probably one of the most important things I'll say on this entire podcast. So people should focus on this. The experience of one human day can be literally like lifetimes different, lifetimes and worlds and universes apart from one to the next. One person can feel like literally a slave, having all their life force drained out of them, which is why Bitcoin is so important, just to be clear, because fiat currency is what allows the system to perpetuate. Bitcoin is potentially the thing that could stop it from happening, and all the manipulation, corporate manipulation of people and all this stuff. Bitcoin can help humanity take its power back from the kings of today, the big bankers and the monetary funds, governments, politicians, and so on, the leeches, I call them, of all that is good. But anyway, separate conversation. So this is something that I just find to be, let's see. So Bitcoin, wow, we go down some different rabbit holes really, really quickly. But Oh yeah. So the experience of a person's day can be so radically different. And I was going to say the 80-20 principle. I always knew from the 80-20 principle, you know, regarding to-do lists and stuff we were talking about earlier and stuff we say, I always knew if you look into the 80-20 principle, people who look in it, you really look deep, you realize like, wait a minute. Does this mean if I only did one thing every day, one thing, but it was the most important thing, that I could only do one thing every day for my business and maybe it would be massively successful? Maybe, not maybe, for sure, it could, at least it's possible that it could be more successful if I did one right thing every day, way more successful than if I did 1,000 wrong things every day. I could work 24 hours a day and do all the wrong things or just not as effective things.
Yep.
And my business wouldn't even be as successful as if I did one right thing every day. And I could never, ever let this go. It bugged me like nothing I could, because I felt like it was a system I could never perfect, but I've learned how to, this is the best part. This is where like I got people hooked. This is what it's come to. Now, I don't know all the answers, but this is something fascinating. So for me, I loved this idea because I realized, okay, if this 80-20 thing is true, it could be extrapolated to 99-1, because that's the basis of the idea. You can just go further and further and further and further. Like you can find the 80-20 of like, what are the main activities I need to be doing in my business that really move the needle? And then what are the absolute things that need to happen, core things that need to happen? And then the rest is all like, just get rid of it. Right. But then within the things that are the core things that move the needle, like say in my business, it's me going on podcasts and talking about great ideas or connecting with partnerships. Let's just say, for example, right? Like what if there's like a select few, just for example, like a select 10 podcasts that are going to literally change my business life, or 10 or 5 key relationships that I could build that are going to literally change everything, you know, that are the things that are going to move the needle. And I could spend all my hours, 8 hours a day, working on all kinds of nonsense, telling myself that I'm busy, reaffirming my addiction to suffering, sadness, misery, and the belief that I have to do that, which aren't true, none of them.
Yes.
What if I just focus on these 1 or 2 relationships, these 1 or 2 or 3 key things, like, and the business could be 1,000,000 times more successful with like 1,000,000 times less work, effort, and struggling. So that's just one example in my life that I'm learning. But here's the thing. I have to constantly be willing to stay conscious to overcome everything that my body is trying to keep me in the past and the past emotions and the judgment I'm afraid of feeling from other people, from shining my light out. You know, we're not afraid. There's a great poem you may have heard of, but it's like the thing that we fear most isn't darkness. It's our own light. It's letting our own light out.
Yes. Yeah. Marianne Williamson, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Beautiful poem. Everyone should really just look up it. The thing we're most afraid of is our own light, not darkness or something like that.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. And if we could flip it and have that perspective, everything is so much less scary to me, you know?
Yeah. But it's hard and scary. Like here we are talking and I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about here, because this is what I've learned. I do know what I'm talking about, but do I practice it all the time? No. But with this business idea, like it's fascinating. And it was like, wow, just in my business could be, the reason I was uncomfortable before was because I felt like no matter how much time and energy I put in, it was specifically the feeling that no matter how hard I could work, that it might be the case that another version of me in another dimension or another theoretical existence could do literally 100th the hard pushing and forcing exertion and have way more success. And I said, I want to be that.
True.
I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. But this is where the meditation comes. This is the answer. The Dispenza. I have to constantly remember that potential and remember that that's possible and meditate and feel that energy and be willing. This is the hardest part. Be willing to let go of the addiction, to the suffering and all the things that I've done for so long. Just like when you put so much money in the poker table and you think you have to stay in for the hand, let the money go. Just let it go. It's bad. Yeah. They say, don't throw good money over bad. Just let the money go. Let the past emotions go and just step into a new life. It's so hard. It's way harder than doing it in a hand of poker, but that's, so anyway, more spiritual discourse interwoven into discussion about light. So basically sunset time. Oh, we were talking about this because that's a business example of the idea that one's life can be so drastically different. And this is from my friend's lifestyle now becoming my lifestyle. Like in one day, you could be like a child in heaven. Jesus says, unless ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Like if you don't become like a kid and free yourself of all the things we think we know, which is what we take into age, this is what he was referring to. You can still be a man, be an adult, but don't let go of the childlike innocence and openness to everything. And then we can like live in heaven. Like a day in a kid's life. I was just with my friend's kids here. Like a day for them is like a universe, an eternity. They go through millions of emotion they could possibly imagine. Yeah. The whole thing. It's like everything in one day. And then you do it again. Like that's a cool life. Why not let's live like that. So anyway, basically wrap the day up, the sun sets, watch the sunset. I just watched it here while we were doing this. So I got a twofer today. I got two things at once and then no food. And then basically wake up again, men earlier, typically speaking, biologically, women relax, sleep in more, soft, cushy bed, men better sleep on the floor. Interestingly, also, I think it's best for couples to sleep separate, not always, but like regularly, because energetically, you get like you can strengthen your own aura. At least this is what the yogi has kind of taught me, because you really get to strengthen your own aura. And the coolest thing too is my current girlfriend, like she's amazing. We get along so well because many things like she intuitively knew that. She's also a yogi, practices yoga, all this stuff. She knew that. She's like, it's good if we sleep together. I was like, amen. Like I don't have to convince someone that that's a good thing to do. So anyway, that's the light diet. And the one thing I do have to do is I'd say like shout out, if it's all right with you, like shout out that my company is called Raw Optics. Yes. And I started it to be able to provide product, because none of the products that were blocking blue light on the market were blocking the right wavelengths and had high quality, attractive frame styles. So I went ahead and basically found the best research possible, and took it and used it to develop the idea for screen and sleep lenses, and then worked with literally the best scientists in the world who basically use pigments and develop pigments to go into lenses to block and absorb light for specific purposes, whether it's cosmetics or this or that. We work with them for lenses, literally the best in the world, and develop the best pigment mixture to block and absorb the light. So you can still block the same light, but do it in different ways. And we have the best way to do it so that the absorption curve is as smooth as possible, the light absorption curve, the quality of the lens is as high as possible, the function, the pigments deeply embedded into the lens rather than just tinted on top. And so it's really the best product on the market, actually. We use, because I won't settle for anything but the highest quality. So we use Italian acetate as the material for our glasses, and German metal as the metal in our glasses. And so it's just literally the best that you can have. People always comment that they feel great, but not.
They're so comfortable. They're so, because I had so many other blue blocking glasses. And then when you reached out and were like, hey, can you try these out? I was like, yes, because the ones I have, I freaking hated, and I would almost never wear them. And now I'm like, always wearing them. I'm half iris on today, but usually if I'm on my screen or on the computer, I've got my day lenses on. As soon as sunset, I've got the night lenses on, and they're super comfortable. Like I don't even feel like I'm wearing anything at all.
Amen.
And I've tried so many other kinds before, and I love.
I'm so glad. Yeah, they're the only premium basically blue light blocking glasses available. And really, as far as I'm concerned, the first week, I call them screen and sleep lenses. So sleep lenses are for use in the evening. When the sun sets, you put them on like I have now, block the blue light and green light also that affects our body's circadian rhythm. And you just feel basically like might as well talk about this because this is the thing people can do in the modern world. So with the sleep lenses, which is the main product, the one that everyone needs effectively in the modern world, yes, because we have all these artificial lights that disrupt our body's circadian rhythm. So the sunrise sets the circadian rhythm. The artificial light disrupts the circadian rhythm and throws it off. And so for a long time, like I was just selling these products, like, okay, like selling the glasses. Okay. They block, from a scientific perspective, they block the blue light that is like a hand that turns up the dimmer switch of our nervous system and activate
Yes.
the system. And that's good in the morning, but at night, when darkness comes, that dimmer switch automatically turns itself back down and we
You want the
relax.
pineal gland to take over at night.
Exactly. The melatonin secretion comes out and the body and brain relax and the body can be primed for repair. The melatonin that's secreted at that time with proper darkness on top of proper sunlight exposure during the light hours of the day, the melatonin is God. I mean, literally, it is the repair molecule that keeps our mitochondria, our cellular engines healthy and young. It is the number one anti-aging, antioxidant, anti-cancer molecule in the entire body, keeps everything healed, and it prevents mitochondria from accumulating excessive wear and tear too much, which when that happens, is the base root cause, this mitochondrial dysfunction of all modern chronic diseases, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative diseases. And it's not genetic. They know now, the scientists have found this out. They've been studying the genes for the last 40, 50 years for the causes of all these diseases, including even autism and so on, and thinking, oh, they're going to find the answer in the genes. Billions of dollars they spent on this, no answers. And one researcher, Dr. Douglas Wallace from University of Pennsylvania and Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, who's been studying this all this time, less than the 2% of funding put towards mitochondrial research, has found the answer to the diseases. Again, Dr. Douglas Wallace, people watch his YouTube videos on YouTube. It's unbelievable what he's finding. And it's important because he's winning big awards and he will change medicine. The only thing is because of the paradigm so corrupt, they're still trying to figure out how to use drugs to heal the mitochondria when it's all clearly environmental. And anyway, that's just how it is. But so basically, literally just by taking back control of our body's circadian rhythm, of our body's natural rhythm, we can absolutely transform our life, get back to the cycle we're supposed to be on, heal our body, which is why I say, watch the sunrise, get some midday sunbathing, and then block blue light at night. Now, of course, people can also just take out the lights in their house, only use candles, only use dim red lights. We're developing lighting for entire houses so people can have healthy light at night for houses, which will be better than anything else that's available, guaranteed. But it might take some time. So find your interim solutions, use candles. But then if you have a spouse or you have to follow other people, you have roommates, or you go out at all, like I go out, I travel the world. And so I wear sleep lenses, even just doing this podcast right now, I wear sleep lenses to protect me from the blue light. And this is where it's really interesting. It feels like, I mean, you wear them, so you know, it feels like your brain calms down. You feel the effects. Many health devices, red light therapy, things like that.
I've got a panel in my room, and it's like when I put on my sleep lenses, because I have a family and I have to cook them dinner because I don't eat when they're eating, but they still want to eat at night. I'm like, cool, I'll cook for you. But it's similar to sitting in front of my red light panel to put on the sleep lenses. It's the same kind of a calming feeling that I get.
It's hugely calming. It's so calming because it's literally calming the nervous system by removing the blue light that turns it on. That blue light's great from the sun in the morning and throughout the day, but not from fluorescent and LED light sources, screens during the day, and especially not at night. It's worse at night. So that's why we have screen lenses or sleep lenses. Now, the coolest, the screen lenses are, as I was getting at, for during the day. If someone has to sit and work in an office or in a school, you can basically wear these and block that blue light. Why? Because, you know, one might think, oh, blue light's okay during the day. The answer is that not really. If it's from a fluorescent or an LED, it's actually really not the same, and it can actually be super toxic. So, you know,
very dehydrating. I mean, it's like.
Now, one thing you'll notice if you listen to that podcast with these doctors is one of the reasons, again, I have disdain is because they are considering themselves scientists unscientifically, closed-mindedly, because closed-mindedness is the hallmark of unscientificness, basically not being scientific. That's not a word. I just made it up. But unscientificness, maybe it is a word. But so basically, you know, they'll latch on everything they can to give someone a hard time. But basically, let's see, they were ridiculing the idea of wearing blue light blocking glasses.
Yeah, I had a couple people in my membership group that were like, oh, what do you think about that? And I was like, Not much.
No, so basically, yeah. So here's the thing. I mean, I get what they're coming from, but the reason, let me just say it this way. The reason I wanted blue light blocking glasses in the first place for the day was because I sat when I was on a foreign exchange program in high school in Bosnia and Herzegovina in Eastern Europe. I sat under bright, painful, bright white fluorescent tube lighting in the school in Bosnia. And, you know, it's a poor country. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't even afford the covers, but there were no covers. It was a bright white tube going straight to my eyes, and it hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt. It gave me headaches, and it was not fun. So I wanted protection, and I got these near clear lenses, which we were actually offering for a while back, quite a while ago at this point at Raw Optics. We were offering like a near clear day lens option, and we actually stopped offering that because based on just over time research, experimentation, and customer demand as well, realized that it wasn't the right thing to do. But it was initially customer demand that prompted having a near clear lens, but it became super clear, no pun intended, that clear and near clear blue light glasses lenses do nothing to really alleviate the excess. They don't do almost anything. And so basically the ones we were selling were the best. They actually did do something, but not enough. That's why we switched back to the yellow lenses. And so the yellow screen lenses for daytime, you wear in, again, office, school, or even a hospital, any place with this bright lighting. And so the headaches I was getting, I wouldn't get them anymore when I wear these lenses. Now, I'd rather have the full spectrum of sunlight and go out and get the blue from the sun with the infrared and the ultraviolet and all of it, and the infrared, all of it together. And that's why I recommend for people who are in those settings, go out as much as you can, even 15 minutes, a couple times a day, even once, if that's all you can get, but multiple times better, like 2 or 3 in a day, if not more, like every 1 or 2 hours, go out for 10 or 15 minutes and just let the light hit your eyes. But basically that's what screen lenses do. And the coolest thing is for people to understand at a big level, what is this protocol, the light diet? Like, what are the things people are currently using to try to solve the problems that this solves? Or what are the shitty, not fun situations people are accepting in their lives as a result of not using this information? And so this will really help put this all into context. So with sleep lenses, they help relax the nervous system and relax people in the evening before going to sleep. And then people get better sleep. So what are the things people are trying? I started asking myself, what are the things people are currently trying to use? So I could re-understand, because years later, I was trying to reinvent myself and my relationship with my business and what I was doing. So I could really feel that spark again. So what is everyone using to calm down their nervous system and relax in the evening?
TV.
TV is one. That's a good idea. So TV. So the glasses are, let's talk into that. So basically the glasses can help you relax in a way that's not toxic for your health, your sleep, your mind. And if you want to watch TV, you still can.
You can, just the red ones.
That's one. TV's huge. The biggest one for all history is alcohol. People
use alcohol. See, I'm so far away from that. It didn't even come to my mind.
Good thing. That's what everyone uses is alcohol. Not everyone, but almost everyone. Wine, mothers drinking wine to relax. It's a huge, huge thing. And that's literally what this product is fixing at the core. At the core, we're fixing the issue of people needing to use alcohol, especially in the modern world, so more and more and more, to just relax naturally in the evening. Also, weed, sleeping pills, Valium.
Everyone's taking something. And melatonin, they're all taking melatonin.
Toxic if you take it exogenously. It can mess up the body's endogenous. But imagine what happens when you confuse your body about how much of the most important repair and antioxidant molecule that it should make. Because melatonin people take exogenously is huge doses compared to what the body makes. Oftentimes it's bad idea, bad territory. And people always tell me their melatonin stories. They got super hooked and messed up. Like, don't go there, everybody. Bad idea.
Thank God it just did nothing but gave me nightmares. Like, I can't take melatonin because the nightmares I have are so epic that I can't there's like horrible nightmares. So I've never,
synthetic chemical pharmaceutical. So the energy, the light that's transmuted on that is death. Whereas if you get melatonin charged by the sun, the light that's brought to you is life.
Where you can get dreams where you actually can process your life and your day, and they're productive instead of like someone's
That's
chasing you,
fascinating.
trying to kill you. Like every time I take melatonin, it's like,
Wow.
people are chasing me down, trying to kill me. I'm like, okay, well, this is
Wow.
not, so intuitively, I don't take it. But I will tell you, I was addicted to sleeping pills for 20 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Until I got inducted into my meditation tradition. And I didn't believe it, but they were like, you're not going to need those anymore after you start meditating every day. And within 6 months, one day I woke up and was like, I don't need these anymore. And just quit cold turkey. And I had tried to quit a million times, but haven't touched a sleeping pill in years now because of meditation. So
amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And this is cool too, because sometimes people say, oh, well, which one is it? Right away. Which one is it? I love this. Someone's listening to this and they're like, oh, that was me. Sorry. Which one is it? Is it the meditation or is it the glasses? Which one do I do? The cool thing is it's cumulative. It's actually beneficial if you do both, because meditation, you relax, your body gets in its normal cycle. You can start making more melatonin naturally. The glasses just help the process. Yeah, that's it. They help speed the process up, which is why we started this conversation in this first place, this huge offshoot, which I'm really glad we've gone down actually into why you can do things in the external environment to have benefits.
Yep.
So to speed up and help this process. So basically sleep lenses help this. And then by getting better sleep, so no, you don't need all this stuff to tune down in the evening. Then by getting better sleep, you wake up, sleep lenses and the light diet, getting the morning sunrise, which is another piece. The two together, the light in the morning and dark at night, or absence of blue light at least. What is the thing, the symptom of the disease is called coffee. Everyone needs coffee to wake up today. It's like people literally talk about it like it's normal. People are like, I need to have my coffee and then I'll start my day. It's like as if it's like a normal thing. I'm like, listen, guys, coffee has only been coming off the ships from, Central America and Ethiopia for like the last couple hundred years at the most, not even. It's like a massive addiction. No one's asking, like, why is the coffee industry one of the biggest industries in the world? It's like, everyone is in this disease. Yeah. So let's start talking about this. Let's have conversations about what's happening. Everyone is circadian disrupted. Everyone's mitochondrial function is distressed. And coffee is just squeezing more life out of a broken, dying system. So coffee is just basically the Walking Dead, staying alive. That's it. That's literally what it is. Stop drinking coffee. How do you feel? That's what you have to deal with. That's what you're working with. So
I quit drinking coffee in February of this year. And I was so depressed. I was so depressed after I quit the coffee. Like I went through a month of like severe depression. And it was before I had started sunrise every day. But now that I do sunrise every day, my husband's like, and he's still on the coffee. He hasn't bought into everything I do. He has appreciate. He's like, you're really hot now. So like, I can't argue with what you're doing. It's working. He's like, you haven't been this hot since like.
And that's the proof in the pudding. Let's do it. Let's focus on vanity. Let's do it.
Yeah. He's like, you're really hot. So like, if you want to be a weirdo and wear glasses and do what you do it. But he's like, in the morning, you have so much flippin' energy and you're so like positive and like smart. And he's like, how the hell do you do that without coffee? I'm like, the sun, like I'm the crazy one barefoot out in the yard, like a crazy person. People are driving by, taking their kids to school. And I'm like barefoot sitting in the front yard. And I'm like,
like when we first spoke, I think you were on your porch, if I remember correctly. I love it. Amazing.
Yeah. I'm outside. I mean, my daughter's, she would live out there if I let her. She's very intuitive, but as soon as she's home from school, she's like barefoot in the yard. And her and I are like barefoot in the yard, like all the time. We wake up in the morning, barefoot in the yard. When she's home, barefoot. I mean, it's just, and that's how I get my energy. Like I don't drink coffee anymore. And I'm like full of energy, feel smarter, but people are using the coffee to band-aid things. I had a conversation with somebody else who's kind of in the circadian biology field. And she was saying that when people are drinking coffee, it's covering up something else. And if you have severe depression, when you quit the coffee, it's just something you've been masking that you have to deal with. You have to like go through it. And the coffee is just kind of covering that up.
Totally. It's a huge thing. And I'm blessed that I didn't, coffee biologically, I was protected because I would drink coffee and I would actually get congested and I would get all sorts of issues going on. So my body protected me from ever like God or soul, whatever. Thank God I was protected. Like I had an adverse reaction to coffee, so I didn't get hooked on it, thankfully. Like basically what is the situation today. So I'm not just like, oh, like, I'm holier than thou. Like, I don't need coffee. Like, no, I was lucky that I didn't get hooked on it.
Well, that's how I am with the melatonin, like.
Yeah, I didn't love it. For me, because everyone has their challenges. My challenge, of course, like there's the addiction to negative emotions that many people fall prey to. But like for me, I have had challenges with overeating. For me has been, and like coffee is like, you need, especially for women needing more masculine energy to like make it through the world. Like I see that with my girlfriend. Like she's kind of getting off coffee now. But like, for a long time, like that's what you need, but it depends. It's different for everyone. But for me, I think overeating was like a numbing, like it numbs you. You just can't really feel anything. You have to deal with your emotions, so that was something I've
lost 100 pounds 3 times. So
wow.
Yeah. I had severe binge eating issues. I mean, I've dealt with that, so I get it. And it's a numbing out. Like you almost like black out when you're eating, because you're not feeling anything except the food just kind of like blacks it all out. So I get it.
Really quickly, it's good you listen to the Luke Story podcast because it primed you for an amazing interview. I'm super stoked. Like a long ass interview too. This was unbelievable. And it's good we spoke earlier too. So I'm stoked about that. We had a great conversation, listener, Sarah and I, like a couple of weeks ago, just getting chatting. So it was really cool, like having that background so we can go deeper here. I'm probably going to do that with like every podcast now. If it's important. But anyway, that was cool. And then I was actually priming myself because, just to be honest, one of the things I do is like, I try to prime myself. I was like, I see a lot of people on social media and the internet and everything. And I see people who are really successful and businesses that are successful. And I'm like, I believe finally, after getting over all this, or at least working on overcoming the addiction to pain, fear, sadness, suffering, etc., that kept me believing that what I have to share is of no value, because that's literally how I thought, even having a company for years, even talking about it, if you can imagine, still holding that internal belief. So you could literally have, like, for example, like I said, I have billionaires, people reaching out to me, CEOs of huge tech companies reaching out, wanting to talk to me, wanting to work it, like, and all on the outside, all the success and having the freedom to travel and not feel any of it. That's literally the perfect, like a full manifestation of this. You could have everything on the outside, but not feel or believe any of it on the inside. And that's just how, and many people could relate to that. That's why I feel like even though I have so much on the outside, I'm starting my life from a fresh recently. But so I was doing this sort of like energy, just mental rehearsal, as Dispenza would say, of what would it be like if I were famous, let's just say, just for fun. Because I was thinking, you know what, like, I think maybe the reason my soul speaks up when I see a lot of people with success and doing all this stuff is because I believe that what I've learned is more of the truth than what they're talking about. And so I see it and I'm like, this isn't it. I know this isn't it. And I can explain to people, just like I have. I mean, this is the best podcast. This is going to be hard to one to beat. I mean, this is 100 times over. Like, this is going to be the next Luke Story podcast that people talk about for you. I swear that was really good because like, I can explain on every single level. We might not have gotten into every detail, but exactly why food isn't it. And people talk about seed oils and all this stuff. That's not it.
Yeah, I talked to Kate Shanahan yesterday and I was, I'm like, okay, but that's not it. That's not there's not the magic bullet.
If you want, here, I got it perfect. If you want to be miserable, worrying about every single detail of your diet, that's it. Stay with seed oils. I promise. Focus on seed oils. Stick with those. You will succeed at being absolutely miserable and never have an ounce of joy in your life because you're obsessed about every single thing you can and can't eat in restaurants.
Yeah.
Now, if you want what I've come to believe that people want, which is to feel love, and on a serious note, truly, I'm being a bit of a pain in the butt here, but it's fun here. So if you want to feel, what I come to believe that people want is to feel whole, to feel one, and to feel love, which is what I always wanted my whole life. That's the only thing I ever wanted. And I never knew, but that was what I was looking for. I wanted to feel whole. I wanted to feel loved. And that was the journey. And if that's what people want, then this is the path. The overcoming of our limiting emotions, the overcoming of our bad beliefs, and basically this idea of taking pain and turning it into love and joy. And so, you know, we've had a great conversation. We talked about, thankfully, raw optics and how sleep lenses can replace alcohol and coffee and the light diet in general. Also, screen lenses can replace that extra cup of coffee people need throughout the day to kind of like keep themselves sane and replace, or just the things people don't even, the no solution, the just things people accept is with bad sleep, with sleep lenses. You know, they can solve the issues of bad sleep, being tired, waking up in the middle of the night. The reviews we get from customers are literally like, I can't even believe them sometimes. Like, I literally didn't sleep through the night for 10 years and I wore the glasses and I slept through the night for the first time in 10 years. And I think to myself, I'm like, this person must be lying to me. Like, there's no way this is possible. But like, then again, I think about the science and the products and I doubt myself, but that's true. People have these experiences. It's amazing. The screen lenses are amazing because you won't have the people accept, submit, and surrender to eye strain, headaches, chronic fatigue during the day. And just both wearing the screen lenses when you're in that poor lighting and going out in the sun more often throughout the day, boom, gone, feel better. But even if you do all of that, I did it all for a long time. If you don't work on these emotional beliefs, you still might find yourself mentally struggling and miserable, which can impede your progress. So with that, Sarah, people can go to rawoptics.com to find us. So if people want to, the other thing is if people want to support me, because like I'm doing a lot of research, trying to do a lot of things, traveling. I don't just travel for fun. I'm meeting with like, let's see, I was going to say heads of state. I'm meeting with heads of state yet. Not quite, but soon enough. But see, I'm programming my mind. I'm so sure of the future that like, but like, I mean, people who are much more important than heads of state, as far as like their influence in large social media, technology companies, stuff like that. Like, these are the people who want to know about this stuff, which is a good thing for the world. It's a good sign for the world. But so like, that's what we're doing. And so people who want to actually support, not just support yourself, if we haven't already given enough reason to do that, if someone needs, oftentimes when it comes to love, people are more ready to love another than they are themselves, which is fine. Let's do that, you know? But so if people want another reason to support, to make this decision, to support themselves, support Raw Optics, support me and what I'm doing, the light diet, you can go to rawoptics.com, get screen and sleep lenses. Everything's actually 20% off now for the next 2 weeks. I don't know when this podcast comes out, but for like, instead of Black Friday, because I don't want anything black, we're doing Light Friday. So light, so it's better, new light. I don't know, when is this coming out? Just out of curiosity.
I could put it out in a couple weeks, so it's within the deadline. I could do that.
Oh, it's okay. Don't worry. Actually, people it's even better. Use your discount code.
That'll be in the info section.
Carnivore Yogi, just so we have it. So Carnivore Yogi, that's good. So Carnivore Yogi, people can use Sarah's discount code. That'll be, I think, really great. That's 15% off. But on rawoptics.com, you can get screen lenses, sleep lenses, and the light diet course, which is on paper. It's a PDF download with links to videos of each step of the light diet, an intro and an outro, like great summary of, so like both the PDF step is me explaining what people can do. And then the video is actually I haven't written a book. You said I'm an author. Thank you for considering that author. I appreciate it.
I think it is.
I'm actually starting. I'm in the process of it, but I started years ago and didn't. And, but so this is really great as like, if people go in and do all those steps, they will have a huge benefit, considering also what we spoke about today, because this is a year since I created that course. So there's some refinements and updates, especially the emphasis on good meal timing and eating lighter, less later in the day. But that's like, so energetically, sort of to wrap up, when people decide to support a cause that is a really good cause, and I promise Raw Optics, it's not just a cause, it's actually helping you. But if you think of it like a cause and you put your energy into that, if it's something that's a really, like if it's a bad cause, if it's something that's like, I don't know, prostitution or something bad, like you put your energy and money into that and you're actually getting just as badly rewarded, even though you think it might just be the other person who's on the poor end of this, the short end of the stick. Like it's actually affecting you just as much. It's the same when it's something that's aligned with the truth. You're putting, because it's always a one-on-one exchange. So you're putting energy and money into that. It's just as much as it's benefiting, you know, the customer, whoever's listening to this, using the screen and sleep lenses, changing your life, maybe trying the light diet course as well. It's also having that beneficial effect on us, which is karmically, energetically having a huge benefit for people, because we're going to be able to keep spreading the message and hopefully waking up the world. That's kind of the goal. But for me, my goal isn't even wake up the world. It's wake up myself and then be of as much service as possible. So anyway, Sarah.
Oh, wow. Thank you. This has been awesome. And you guys can follow Matt on Instagram. It's The Light Diet, right?
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah.
The Light Diet. And again, The Light Diet's my personal Instagram. Raw_optics is the business Instagram, where you can just see cool, fun, general ideas and be inspired there. But The Light Diet is where I have most of the content. I'm on Twitter at The Light Diet, just started being a little bit more active there, but barely, but you can still go and check it out. We have coming out probably soon, I'm not sure relative to this podcast, but we're going to be actually having raw red light therapy coming out very shortly. So basically we'll have 2 panels, a large called the Raw Maximus panel, and then the Raw Medius panel will be the medium size for like a tabletop red light therapy device, which I also recommend people get. Yeah. Long story short, red light therapy is amazing, supercharges the mitochondria. We've developed also like basically the best device on the market that people can get. And if you get it through pre-order, which will be happening at the time probably this goes live or shortly after, you can save a huge amount, 20% on the panels, which is a lot for a panel. They almost never discount them at all because they're expensive. But that'll be good for people if they want to do the pre-order and wait some weeks. But then we're also going to eventually have whole house lighting, and I'm in the process of putting together a book just to really have all this, because this 3 hours of conversation, I mean, could be a book in and of itself.
It could be,
thousands of words. So we could really, that could be really good. So, and if anyone wants to reach out, message me through Instagram, or people can, actually that's best. Message me on Instagram at The Light Diet. I think that's best. So
awesome. Well, thank you again for being here, and I'm going to stop recording, but yeah, awesome.
All right, great.